The quiet details rest in corners you've passed 1,000 times without noticing. Small truths about a world built from pixels and imagination, layered across decades of design choices and careful decisions. Each fact carries its own weight, its own story about how things came to be. Some answers hide in plain sight, while others linger in code that was never meant to be examined. The Pokémon world holds more than battles and journeys, more than the routes you've walked and the gyms you've challenged. These are the facts you didn't know, the small truths that shift how you see a familiar world. And before we drift any further into these quiet revelations, take a moment to let the night settle around you while we explore what's been waiting all along. The first detail appears in a name you've always known. The protagonist of the animated series carries a name that honors the franchise's creator. In the original version, the character is called Satoshi, named directly for Satoshi Tajiri, who brought Pokémon into existence. His rival bears the name Shigeru, a tribute to Shigeru Miyamoto, whose influence shaped the gaming world that made Pokémon possible. These names remained in the version that first aired, though translations changed them for different regions. The acknowledgement lived in the original language, a quiet thank you embedded in the story itself. Towns in the earliest games followed a pattern tied to color. The place where your journey begins is called Palette Town, named for an artist's palette, where all colors wait to be chosen. Every settlement you encounter afterward continues this theme, each name tied to a shade or hue. The world built itself around this simple organizing principle, turning geography into a gentle metaphor about beginnings and possibilities. Starting with the first generation, a small detail appeared in every player's bedroom. A console matching the current generation sat in the protagonist's room, visible when the game began. Each new release updated this detail, placing the appropriate gaming system in that familiar space. It was a recursive nod, the game acknowledging its own existence within the fiction it created. Early stories mentioned that animals existed alongside Pokémon in the world. Both the games and the animated series made these references, suggesting a reality where ordinary creatures and extraordinary beings coexisted. This idea faded as the world developed, eventually settling into a universe where only Pokémon fill the ecological niches that animals would occupy. The transition happened quietly, without announcement, as the fictional ecology found its own internal logic. 3 episodes of the original animated series never aired outside their initial broadcast. One featured realistic weapons that were deemed inappropriate for the target audience. Another showed a character wearing prosthetics in a way that raised concerns. The third caused documented medical reactions in viewers, flashing lights that triggered epileptic episodes in susceptible individuals. These episodes were pulled from rotation, becoming part of the franchise's history that most viewers never witnessed. The feline Pokémon, known for its linguistic abilities, has a verbal pattern in the original language. Its name forms part of its speech, creating a repetitive signature that marks every sentence. This trait exists only in the Japanese version, where the character's name and its catchphrase intertwine. Translations couldn't preserve this wordplay, so the pattern changed for international audiences. The original remained one of the few names kept consistent across different regions. The first games released weren't the versions most players remember. Before the refined editions reached international markets, the original Japanese releases appeared as Pokémon Red and Pokémon Green. These initial versions contained rougher designs and less polished mechanics. When the games prepared for broader distribution, improvements transformed them into Pokémon Red and Pokémon Blue, the versions that defined the franchise for millions of players worldwide. Those early games sparked a dark legend that persisted for years. Stories circulated about a musical theme in Lavender Town that allegedly caused psychological distress and even suicides among young players. The tale focused on high-frequency tones that supposedly affected children's minds. In reality, the music was adjusted between versions for various technical and artistic reasons, but the legend grew beyond the facts, becoming one of gaming's most persistent urban myths. References to real-world geography appeared in the earliest games. Dialogue mentioned places like South America, suggesting the Pokémon world existed as an alternate version of our own planet. Later entries abandoned this approach, building a geography entirely separate from reality. The shift happened without explanation, as if the connection to Earth had simply faded from collective memory. Early versions included a battle against Professor Oak at the game's conclusion. This encounter existed in the code, but was removed before release, replaced by a final confrontation with your rival. Data miners discovered remnants of Oak's battle team years later, finding evidence of what that ending almost included. Documents about a specific Pokémon can be found in a particular location if you search carefully. The Team Rocket hideout contains reports that describe experiments and observations, though they never explicitly name Mewtwo. The connection remains implicit, letting players draw their own conclusions about what happened in that facility. The main character of the animated series captures approximately 30 of the same bovine Pokémon during one adventure. Despite having this entire herd available, only one ever participates in battles. The others remain at Oak's facility, a peculiar detail about resource management and choice. The Pokémon that can learn any move through technical teaching faces an ironic limitation. When taught Attract, which affects Pokémon of the opposite gender, the move becomes useless. Mew has no gender designation, making the romantic technique incompatible with its biology. When using Surf to travel across water in the earliest 2 generations, only the Pokémon appears on screen. The trainer's sprite never shows, creating the impression that you ride invisibly atop your companion. Later generations corrected this, adding the human figure to make the travel visually complete. The daycare system changed its rules between generations. In the first games, the caretaker refused to accept any Pokémon that had learned an HM move. Later versions relaxed this restriction, allowing HM-taught Pokémon to enter and even offering to help them forget those permanent-seeming techniques. Kangaskhan's species classification describes it as a parent Pokémon, yet every specimen encountered is female. The Pokédex entry and the biology create a small paradox, suggesting a species where males either don't exist or remain permanently hidden. The first evolution witnessed in the animated series belongs to Caterpie. This small bug type transforms into Metapod in an early episode, establishing the concept that would become central to the franchise's identity. The moment introduces viewers to the idea that growth and change define the Pokémon experience. In the animated series, catching a Pokémon instantly restores its health. Creatures emerge from their Pokéballs at full strength, regardless of their condition when captured. The games maintain a different logic, preserving the Pokémon's damaged state until treatment is applied. This split between media creates 2 different understandings of how capture affects the creatures. Many starter Pokémon across generations share a common origin in reptilian designs. Charmander, Squirtle, Cyndaquil, Treecko, and Totodile all draw from various reptile species, creating a pattern that extends through multiple regions. This choice grounds the starters in familiar animal categories while allowing creative interpretation. Magikarp's evolution into Gyarados references an ancient legend. Chinese mythology tells of a carp that leaps over the Dragon Gate waterfall and transforms into a dragon as reward for its persistence. The story speaks to determination and transformation, themes that Pokémon has always embraced. This cultural reference adds depth to what seems like a simple power increase evolution. Mr. Mimes can be female despite its name, explicitly suggesting male gender. The English localization created this oddity, as the original name had different connotations. Players can encounter female Mr. Mime throughout the series, a quirk that highlights how translation sometimes creates unintended complications. Zubat can learn Mean Look despite having no visible eyes. The bat Pokemon navigates through echolocation, yet somehow masters a technique that supposedly requires eye contact. Game mechanics prioritize functionality over strict biological logic. Geodude floats perpetually without visible means of support. Pokédex entries explain it uses magnetic forces, though the mechanism remains vague. You'll never encounter a Geodude resting on the ground in any game, anime episode, or supplementary material. The constant levitation defines its existence. When Pokemon evolve in the games, they can learn moves they couldn't access in their previous form. Sometimes, evolution locks you out of techniques the pre-evolved form could master. Certain Pokemon should be held back from evolving to complete their movesets, a strategic consideration that adds complexity to team building. The Pokemon Tower in Lavender Town stands as the franchise's most explicitly morbid location. It's a graveyard where trainers bury their deceased companions, a place haunted by ghost-type Pokemon and filled with grieving visitors. The game doesn't shy away from death in this context, treating it as a natural part of life that deserves respect and remembrance. Cubone wears his deceased mother's skull as a helmet according to Pokédex entries. This dark detail raises questions that the games never answer. Where do wild Cubone get these skulls? Does every Cubone lose its mother? The lore creates a tragedy that persists across the entire species. Team Rocket's Persian belongs to Giovanni in both the games and the anime. The same species appears as his signature Pokemon across media, creating consistency in his characterization. The sleek feline represents his status and sophistication, a deliberate choice that defines his presence. Pokemon eggs were introduced in Generation 2, fundamentally changing how creatures could be obtained. Before Gold and Silver, Pokemon could only be caught in the wild or received through trades and gifts. Breeding added a new dimension to collection and strategy, opening possibilities for inheriting moves and abilities. The games never show Pokemon reproducing despite the existence of eggs. When you leave two compatible Pokemon at the daycare, the caretaker eventually reports finding an egg, but the origin remains mysterious. The games preserve a child-appropriate ambiguity about biological processes. Ditto can breed with nearly any Pokemon, regardless of compatibility groups. This unique ability suggests something unusual about its biology. Fan theories and occasional hints in the lore connect Ditto to failed attempts at cloning Mew, though the games never confirm this directly. Pokemon genders weren't distinguished until Generation 2. In the original games, all Pokemon were functionally genderless, even when their species clearly suggested biological sex. Gold and Silver introduced gender differences, adding breeding mechanics and species-specific variations. The Pokédex records written by a 10-year-old child are treated as scientific fact within the game world. This child travels around scanning Pokémon, and their data gets automatically logged and accepted as authoritative. The absurdity of this system becomes clear when you consider entries claiming Magcargo is hotter than the sun, or that Alakazam has an IQ of 5,000. Ghost-type Pokemon are immune to normal and fighting-type moves in most generations. This creates a hard counter situation where certain types simply cannot damage others without learning moves outside their primary category. The system encourages team diversity and strategic thinking. Psychic-type Pokemon dominated the first-generation competitive scene. With few effective counters and powerful moves, teams built around Pokemon like Alakazam and Mewtwo controlled matches. The introduction of steel and dark types in Generation 2 specifically addressed this imbalance. Missing No exists as a glitch, not an intentional Pokémon. When players performed specific actions in Generation 1, this corrupted data appeared as an encounter. Catching it could corrupt save files or duplicate items, creating both opportunity and risk. Missing No became legendary among players, despite being an accident of programming. The Elite Four can be challenged in any order in the first generation. This freedom disappears in later games, which impose a linear path through the championship challengers. The original design allowed players to choose their difficulty curve by selecting which specialist to face first. Some Pokémon require trading to evolve, a mechanic that encourages social interaction. Kadabra, Machoke, Graveler, and Haunter need to be exchanged between games to reach their final forms. This design choice made the Game Link cable essential and turned evolution into a collaborative experience. Certain Pokémon only evolve when traded while holding specific items. Onix needs a metal coat, Scyther needs the same item, and Porygon needs an upgrade. These requirements added layers of complexity to trading and evolution, making some transformations feel like achievements requiring knowledge and resources. The bicycle is faster than running shoes, but both are slower than riding certain Pokémon. Each game adjusts these relative speeds slightly, but the hierarchy generally maintains that mechanical transportation beats running, while Pokémon riding can surpass both. Surfing Pikachu was a special variant, obtainable through specific events and mini-games. This Pikachu knew Surf, a move the species normally couldn't learn. The variant appeared in Yellow version and became memorable enough to return in later generations as a nostalgic callback. The SS Anne departs permanently after you complete its story events. If you board the ship, get cut, and leave, you can never return. Speedrunners discovered that you could surf away from the dock before the departure, allowing the ship to remain accessible. This sequence breaking became a famous trick in the community. Lieutenant Surge is identified as the Lightning American in the original games. This detail confirms that America exists in the Pokémon world, at least in early lore. Later games moved away from real-world geographic references, making this designation an artifact of the series' initial conception. Mew was added to the first games at the last minute. Programmer Shigeki Morimoto inserted it into empty memory space without telling his supervisors. When the secret became public through events and rumors, Nintendo had to acknowledge its existence. Mew's hidden status made it legendary and drove early internet Pokémon culture. The truck near the SS Anne sparked countless rumors. Players believed that using strength to move it would reveal Mew underneath. Despite years of attempts and variations, nothing exists beneath the truck. The rumor persisted because the truck itself serves no purpose, making its presence seem deliberately mysterious. Lavender Town's music uses slightly different frequencies between the Japanese and international releases. The original version employed tones in a higher range that some players found unsettling. Adjustments in later versions made the theme less piercing while maintaining its eerie atmosphere. Ghost-type Pokémon in Generation 1 are also Poison-type, except for Missing No variants. Ghastly, Haunter, and Gengar all carry dual typing, making them vulnerable to psychic attacks, despite the type matchup suggesting Ghost should counter Psychic. This design choice weakened Ghost types in the competitive scene. The substitute technique creates a decoy that absorbs damage. In Generation 1, if a substitute was active when you switched Pokémon, the animation showed the substitute being recalled instead of the actual Pokémon. This visual quirk made it seem like the decoy was the real creature. Pokémon centers offer free healthcare without explanation. The games never address how this system sustains itself economically. Nurse Joy appears in every town, provides instant healing, and never charges fees. This utopian medical system exists without commentary on its impossibility. Pokémon storage was initially limited to a specific number of boxes. In early generations, if all boxes were full, you couldn't catch more Pokémon until you released or deposited others. Later games expanded storage and eventually made it accessible anywhere, removing this frustration. The XP share item changed functionality across generations. Originally, it allowed one Pokémon to receive partial experience without participating in battle. Later versions distributed experience to the entire team, fundamentally changing how training worked and reducing grinding requirements. Some routes in the games can only be traveled in specific weather conditions. Routes might be blocked by sandstorms or require rain to access certain areas. This environmental gating added realism to the world while creating natural progression barriers. The Battle Tower and similar facilities introduced standardized competitive rules. These locations set all Pokémon to the same level and banned certain species or items. The format allowed players to test strategies under fair conditions and became the foundation for official competitive play. Shiny Pokémon were introduced in Generation 2 as extremely rare color variants. The odds of encountering one randomly were approximately 1 in 8,000, making each discovery a memorable moment. These variants had no statistical differences, but became highly prized for their rarity. The Red Gyarados at the Lake of Rage was many players' first guaranteed shiny encounter. This scripted event introduced the concept of alternate colorations and tied shiny Pokémon to the game's story about Team Rocket's radio experiments. The forced encounter ensured players understood that variants existed. Breeding can influence a Pokémon's potential through individual values and later through effort values. These hidden statistics determine how strong a Pokémon can become, separate from its level. Competitive play revolves around understanding and optimizing these invisible numbers. Nature System, introduced in Generation 3, affects stat growth. A Pokémon's nature increases one stat by 10% while decreasing another, adding another layer of individuality. 25 natures exist, with 5 being neutral. This system made even Pokémon of the same species develop differently. Abilities appeared in Generation 3, giving each species passive effects in battle. Some abilities activated automatically, while others required specific conditions. The system added enormous strategic depth, making team building far more complex than simple type coverage. Double battles became a standard format starting in Generation 3. These matches required different strategies than single battles, as moves could hit multiple targets and positioning mattered. The format eventually became the primary mode for competitive play. Weather conditions gained mechanical significance in Generation 3. Rain boosted water moves and weakened fire moves, while changing the effectiveness of certain abilities. Teams could be built around weather strategies, setting conditions that benefited your Pokémon while hindering opponents. The physical special split occurred in Generation 4, fundamentally changing how moves worked. Previously, all moves of a given type were either physical or special. The split made each move individually physical or special, allowing Pokémon to use their stats more effectively and opening new strategic possibilities. Stealth Rock became one of the most influential moves in competitive play. This entry hazard damages Pokémon based on their rock-type weakness when they switch in. The move's power and reliability made it nearly mandatory in competitive teams, centralizing strategy around its presence. Mega Evolution appeared in Generation 6 as temporary transformations during battle. Certain Pokémon holding specific stones could Mega Evolve once per battle, gaining new forms with different abilities and stats. The mechanic added spectacle to battles while creating new strategic considerations about when to activate the transformation. Z moves in Generation 7 allowed any Pokémon to perform powerful attacks once per battle. Each type had its own Z move, accessible through crystals and a bracelet worn by the trainer. The system democratized access to spectacular moves, letting any Pokémon have a moment of devastating power. Dynamax in Generation 8 made Pokémon grow to enormous size for 3 turns. This regional phenomenon changed battle dynamics by giving all moves additional effects and massively increasing HP. The temporary transformation replaced Mega Evolution and Z moves as the generation's signature battle mechanic. Regional variants appeared starting in Generation 7, showing how Pokémon adapt to different environments. Alolan forms of Kanto Pokémon had different types and designs, explained through isolated evolution in a new region. This concept let designers revisit older Pokémon without replacing the originals. Some Pokémon require specific conditions beyond leveling to evolve. Happiness levels, time of day, location, gender, moves known, items in bag, and even holding the game system upside down have all served as evolution triggers. These unusual requirements make certain evolutions feel like discoveries. Trade evolutions became controversial in later generations due to online trading requirements. Players without internet access or subscription services struggled to complete their Pokédex. Some games added NPCs willing to trade evolution Pokémon, acknowledging this accessibility problem. The Pokémon world's technology far exceeds our own in specific areas while lagging in others. Computers can store living creatures as data and transport them instantly, yet many regions lack basic internet infrastructure. This selective advancement creates a unique technological landscape. Gym leaders use Pokémon appropriate to challengers' skill levels in the anime. In the games, their teams are fixed regardless of how many badges you've earned. The anime's approach explains why 8-badge teams don't simply overwhelm beginning trainers, maintaining narrative logic that the games sacrifice for gameplay consistency. Some Pokémon are version exclusive, only appearing in specific games. This encourages trading between players who bought different versions. The practice began with the original Red and Blue and continued through every generation, making complete Pokédex completion a social activity. Event-exclusive Pokémon could only be obtained during specific real-world promotional periods. Missing the distribution window meant missing the Pokémon entirely, at least until the event potentially repeated years later. This time-limited availability made certain Pokémon genuinely rare. Mythical Pokémon are distinguished from legendary Pokémon by their exclusive event distribution. While legendary Pokémon can be caught in-game, mythical ones typically required attending events or receiving special distributions. This created a category of Pokémon most players never legitimately obtained. The Global Trade Station allowed players worldwide to trade Pokémon without direct communication. You could deposit a Pokémon requesting another and wait for someone to fulfill the trade. The system made completing the Pokédex more accessible, but also enabled scamming through impossible requests. Wonder Trade let players send out a Pokémon and receive a random one in return. This feature encouraged surprise and generosity, while also becoming a dumping ground for common Pokémon players didn't want. Occasionally, generous players sent rare Pokémon through Wonder Trade, creating unexpected delights. Pokémon Amy and later Pokémon Refresh let players interact directly with their team. Petting, feeding, and playing minigames increased affection, which provided battle bonuses. These features emphasize the companionship aspect of the franchise beyond pure competitive battling. Super Training visualized effort value training through minigames. The previously invisible process of stat optimization became something players could see and control directly. This transparency helped newer players understand competitive concepts without consulting external guides. The Battle Frontier offered various challenge formats beyond standard battles. Facilities tested different skills like rental Pokémon usage, consecutive battles without healing, or matches where you couldn't use the same Pokémon twice. These variations added longevity to post-game content. Contests provided an alternative to battling for measuring Pokémon quality. Beauty, coolness, cuteness, smartness, and toughness became stats that mattered in these competitions. Pokémon raised for contests needed different training than battle-focused ones, creating a parallel gameplay path. Pokémon could create Poffins or Pokéblocks from berries to enhance contest stats. The cooking minigames produced treats of varying quality based on timing and berry combinations. This system let players optimize their Pokémon for contests just as seriously as others optimized for battles. Secret bases in Generation 3 let players create personal spaces in hidden locations. Friends could visit these bases and battle the owner's team. The feature created a sense of ownership and persistence in the world, making the region feel partially shaped by player creativity. The Underground in Generation 4 created a multiplayer mining and base building space. Players could dig for fossils and rare items while building secret bases, more elaborate than previous versions allowed. The social aspect made the Underground a popular feature that fans requested in future games. Join Avenue in Generation 5 created a shopping district that players developed through social interactions. Shops improved as more players visited, creating better items and services. The feature encouraged local wireless play by making social interaction mechanically beneficial. Festival Plaza in Generation 7 centralized online features in a customizable social space. Players could battle, trade, and participate in missions together. The plaza leveled up through participation, unlocking better facilities and rare items. Poképelago in Generation 7 let boxed Pokémon explore islands and gather items. This feature gave purpose to stored Pokémon beyond waiting to be used. Islands could be developed to produce berries, evolutionary stones, and experience points for the Pokémon visiting them. Pokémon following behind the trainer appeared in Yellow version and returned in Heart Gold and Soul Silver. Each species had unique overworld sprites that walked at different speeds and displayed personality. The feature became beloved for making Pokémon feel like companions rather than tools stored in balls. Riding Pokémon replaced HM moves in Generation 7, allowing you to summon specific Pokémon for traversal without needing them in your party. This change freed up move slots previously dedicated to field moves, while maintaining the utility those moves provided. Camp replaced Amy in Generation 8, letting players interact with their entire party simultaneously. Pokémon played together, revealing relationships and personalities. Cooking Curry provided bonuses, while creating a library of recipes to collect. Autosave became optional in later generations after being absent for most of the series. The addition acknowledged that some players preferred manual saving, while others wanted protection against losing progress. The option satisfied both preferences. Experience candy items in Generation 8 provided exact amounts of experience points. These items dropped from max raid battles and came in sizes from small to large. The system let players level Pokémon without battling, addressing complaints about grinding. Mints introduced in Generation 8 allowed changing of Pokémon's nature effects without changing the nature itself. This addressed the frustration of finding perfect Pokémon with undesirable natures. The change made competitive team building more accessible without completely removing the importance of natures. Bottle caps let players maximize individual values on Pokémon that didn't have perfect ones naturally. This item-based solution to IV training made competitive preparation less dependent on extensive breeding. The feature acknowledged that the hidden stat system created barriers for casual players. Eggs hatched faster when a Pokémon with the Flame Body or Magma Armor ability was in the party. This passive effect became essential knowledge for breeders who kept these Pokémon specifically to accelerate egg hatching. The mechanic rewarded game knowledge with efficiency. The Masuda method increased shiny odds when breeding Pokémon from different real-world regions. A Japanese Ditto traded internationally became highly valuable for shiny hunters. The feature encouraged global trading while providing a legitimate path to obtaining rare color variants. Pokerus is a beneficial virus that doubles effort value gains. It's rarer than shiny Pokémon, but spreads through the party after battles. Infected Pokémon display a special marking, and the virus can be preserved by storing Pokémon in boxes. The positive virus subverted expectations about game mechanics. Some areas require specific Pokémon in your party to access. The Sinnoh games featured routes blocked unless you had certain species with you. This gating mechanism encouraged catching diverse Pokémon rather than focusing solely on your main team. Honey trees in Generation 4 spawned rare Pokémon after waiting real-world hours. The trees had hidden quality values that affected what appeared. This time-based mechanic encouraged checking back periodically rather than grinding encounters continuously. The Battle Maison and Battle Tree featured trainers using competitive strategies. These facilities didn't simply have high-level Pokémon, but employed actual strategy, prediction, and team synergy. Beating them required understanding competitive concepts like speed tiers and move priority. Rotation battles and triple battles appeared briefly as experimental formats. These modes increased the number of active Pokémon and added positioning mechanics. Neither format gained lasting popularity, and they were quietly discontinued in later generations. Inverse battles flipped type effectiveness, making super effective moves weak and vice versa. This mode appeared as optional challenges and required completely rethinking team strategy. The format demonstrated how central type matchups are to Pokemon's core gameplay. Sky battles restricted participation to flying types and Pokemon with Levitate. These battles appeared in Generation 6 as aerial encounters. The limitation made the format feel distinct, but also prevented it from becoming a major feature. Horde encounters let players battle 5 wild Pokemon simultaneously. These encounters had increased shiny odds and allowed finding Pokemon with hidden abilities. The format made certain grinding tasks more efficient while creating visually impressive battles. SOS battles in Generation 7 allowed wild Pokemon to call for help. Allies could continue calling reinforcements, creating chains that increased shiny odds and guaranteed high IVs after enough encounters. The mechanic turned wild battles into potential extended encounters. Max raid battles in Generation 8 created cooperative challenges against giant Dynamax Pokemon. 4 players could team up to fight these boosted encounters, which rewarded rare items and Pokemon with hidden abilities. The feature encouraged multiplayer cooperation. Den raids reset daily, creating routine content to check. Players could share raid codes to invite others to specific battles. This created a community around hunting rare Pokemon and distributing access to desirable encounters. The wild area introduced open-world elements to Pokémon. This large zone connected multiple towns and featured freely controllable camera, weather systems, and level scaling encounters. The space represented the series' biggest step toward open-world design. Weather in the wild area changed daily based on real-world calendar dates. Specific Pokémon and raid encounters only appeared during certain weather conditions. This time gating encouraged checking back regularly, rather than completing everything in one session. Gigantamax forms were rare variants of Dynamax Pokémon with unique appearances and exclusive moves. Not every individual of a species could Gigantamax, only special ones obtained through raids or events. This added another layer of rarity beyond shiny hunting. Curry Dex completion required making recipes with different ingredients and success levels. The minigame had better rewards for well-cooked curry, encouraging learning the timing. Completing the entire Curry Dex became an optional completionist goal. Alchemy had dozens of forms based on the time, direction, and duration of spinning during evolution. The specific combination of factors determined which decoration appeared on the final form. This evolution method was the most complex in the series. The Let's Go games replaced random encounters with visible Pokémon in the overworld. This change let players choose which Pokémon to engage, rather than triggering battles through tall grass. The feature proved popular and influenced later traditional games. Capture mechanics in Let's Go borrowed from Pokémon Go, using throwing motion and berry feeding instead of battle then catch. This simplified system removed the traditional weakening process, making catching more accessible but less strategic. Partner Pikachu and Eevee in Let's Go had stats far exceeding normal members of their species. These powered-up versions learned exclusive moves and couldn't evolve. The special treatment made them overpowered, but the games were designed around their strength. Pokémon Go's integration with main series games created transfer opportunities. Go players could send Pokémon to Let's Go games, and later to home. This connection gave purpose to Go captures beyond the mobile game itself. The Rotom Dex in Generation 7 served as both Pokédex and navigation tool. The possessed device had personality, commenting on your journey and offering advice. Later, it gained a lottery feature and could control other Rotom-possessed devices. Ultra Beasts were creatures from another dimension with alien designs. These Pokémon had stat distributions focused on specific areas, making them powerful but specialized. Their otherworldly nature made them feel genuinely foreign compared to normal Pokémon. Cosmog and its evolutions represented the legendary mascots as species that could be owned and trained. Previous legendary Pokémon couldn't breed or be obtained in multiples legitimately. This change made the box legends feel less unique but more accessible. The battle agency rented Pokémon to players rather than using their own teams. This facility tested skill with unfamiliar Pokémon and movesets. Success required adaptability rather than practiced team synergy. Mantine surfing minigame in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon let players score points through tricks while traveling between islands. High scores rewarded battle points. The feature added skill-based gameplay to what was normally simple traversal. Photo Club mode let players post Pokémon and trainers for pictures. Various filters, frames, and expressions could be applied. The feature appealed to players who enjoyed creative modes beyond battling and collecting. Totem Pokémon were boss battles against empowered wild Pokémon that called allies. These encounters replaced gym battles in Alola, offering unique challenges. Totem stickers hidden throughout the region could be collected to obtain these Pokémon in special forms. Island Scan feature let players find Pokémon not native to Alola by scanning QR codes. One scan per day could be performed, with the special encounter available after enough scans. This gated the feature while making each encounter feel earned. Pokefinder took pictures of wild Pokémon in specific locations. Better photos earned higher scores and leveled up the camera. The feature encouraged observation and composition rather than just battling. Festival Plaza missions were timed cooperative events where players worked toward collective goals. Completion rewarded everyone who participated. These missions encouraged community cooperation for mutual benefit. The ability to skip tutorial dialogue appeared as an option in later games. Early games forced players through explanations regardless of experience level. The skip option acknowledged that not everyone playing was new to the series. Difficulty modes were briefly available in Black 2 and White 2, but required convoluted unlock conditions. The feature let experienced players face tougher challenges, or newcomers play easier versions. Its removal in later games disappointed players who wanted scalable difficulty. The experience shares switched to permanent team-wide experience, split the fan base. Players who wanted traditional training found themselves overleveled unless they avoided battles. Those who appreciated efficiency enjoyed the streamlined progression. Later games made it toggleable to satisfy both groups. Affection benefits in battle confused competitive players when they appeared in story mode. Extra evasion, critical hits, and status cure chances made battles unpredictable. Competitive formats disabled these effects, creating different rule sets for casual and serious play. Type specialists on gym leader teams sometimes had off-type Pokémon. Brock's Onyx was rock-type, not rock/ground in Generation 1, making it vulnerable to water despite the gym's type. These exceptions acknowledged that pure-type teams would be less challenging. Elite Four members in later games sometimes overlapped types with each other. Instead of 4 distinct specialists, some members shared types while emphasizing different strategies. This reduced type predictability while maintaining thematic teams. Champion battles featured diverse teams without type specialization. This made champions feel like complete trainers rather than specialists. Their teams covered multiple types and strategies, requiring balanced preparation rather than single-type counters. Rematch features let players battle gym leaders and other trainers again with strengthened teams. This provided challenge and money-earning opportunities after beating the main story. Some games made rematches easily accessible, while others required specific conditions. The Versus Seeker in certain games alerted players when trainers wanted rematches. This item made finding battles convenient without needing to remember locations. Its removal in later games forced players to manually check each route. Pokémon following the trainer showed happiness through overworld interactions. Happy Pokémon bounced or danced, while unhappy ones looked reluctant. These visual indicators made the invisible happiness stat tangible and emotionally affecting. Some Pokémon found items while walking with the trainer. Pickup ability and other effects activated passively, rewarding players who brought specific Pokémon on their journey. This created incentive to rotate team members rather than using the same 6 constantly. Soothe Bell held item accelerated happiness growth. Giving it to Pokémon that evolved through happiness made the process faster. The item became essential knowledge for players trying to evolve Eevee into Espeon or Umbreon. Friendship berries reduced specific effort values while increasing happiness. This let players fix EV spreads on Pokémon they'd already trained. The dual purpose made these berries valuable for both competitive and casual players. Vitamins increased effort values up to a cap, allowing quick partial training. Wealthy players could buy training progress instead of battling specific Pokémon. The cost balanced convenience against time investment. Wings in later generations gave single points of EVs. These allowed precise optimization beyond what vitamins provided. Collecting them became a task that rewarded exploration and checking hidden spots. Feathers obtained from various sources taught specific optimizations. Their locations encouraged thorough exploration of each area. The gradual collection created a long-term side goal beyond immediate story progression. Some moves became special encounters or require specific tutors. Draco Meteor could only be taught by NPCs to Pokémon with maximum happiness. These restricted moves felt valuable due to their scarcity. Move tutors in various locations taught coverage moves unavailable through level up. Finding these tutors and affording their services became part of team optimization. Some taught for money, while others required battle points or specific items. Reminder moves let Pokémon relearn techniques from their level up list. This fixed mistakes when evolving before learning important moves. The feature prevented permanent loss of moves and encouraged experimentation. Deleter NPCs existed to remove HM moves that couldn't be normally forgotten. Their presence acknowledged that HM moves could trap players with unwanted techniques. Later games made HMs deletable normally or removed them entirely. Name Raider NPCs allowed changing Pokémon nicknames with restrictions. Traded Pokémon couldn't be renamed, preventing players from fixing inappropriate names. This limitation protected trainers from receiving offensively named Pokémon they couldn't change. Footprint identification required showing specific Pokémon to NPCs. These experts evaluated how much the Pokémon liked its trainer based on happiness. The feature added flavor while providing quantitative happiness information. Berry growing introduced agriculture mechanics. Planting, watering, and harvesting berries on schedules created passive gameplay. The system let players produce their own healing items and battle enhancers. Berry mutations occurred when specific berries grew adjacent to each other. This discovery-based system rewarded experimentation. Some rare berries could only be obtained through correct combinations. Mulch items affected berry yield and growth time. Strategic mulch use optimized farming for specific berries. The added complexity made berry farming deeper for invested players. Seasons in Generation 5 changed monthly, affecting Pokémon availability and area access. Deerling's form changed with seasons, making it require a full year to collect all variants. This real-time element extended engagement over months. Special encounters appeared only during specific seasons. This time gating meant completing the Pokédex required patience or trading. The feature encouraged checking back throughout the year. Bridge battles in Generation 5 created gauntlets of consecutive trainer fights. These sequences tested resource management without healing access. Successfully completing them felt accomplishing due to the sustained challenge. Rotation in trainer schools let you battle trainers who explained game mechanics. These tutorial battles helped newer players while rewarding experienced ones with easy wins. The educational framing made tutorials feel less forced. Pokémon musicals in Generation 5 created fashion shows with dressed-up Pokémon. The feature replaced contests with a simpler system focused on visual appeal. Participation rewarded props for future performances. Dream World was an online feature where Pokémon with hidden abilities could be obtained. The web-based component required computer access separate from the game. When Dream World shut down, these Pokémon became unobtainable through that method. Hidden grottos appeared as refreshable locations with random items and Pokémon. Daily checks could yield rare encounters with hidden abilities. The randomness made each discovery feel valuable. Fainted Pokémon still gained experience in Generation 5's harder difficulty mode. This quality of life feature let players train multiple Pokémon simultaneously without constant switching. Its removal in later games frustrated some players. PWT Tournament featured gym leaders and champions from all regions. This nostalgic facility let players battle characters from previous games with updated teams. The crossover appeal made it a beloved post-game feature. Medal system in Black 2 and White 2 created achievement tracking. Hundreds of medals rewarded specific accomplishments from battling to collecting. The extensive list gave completionists many goals to pursue. Join Avenue missions in Generation 5 created collaborative shopping districts. Better shops meant better items, creating incentive for social play. The system rewarded regular interaction with other players. Challenger battles in Nimbasa City created rotating rental battles. These preset teams changed regularly, offering variety without requiring team building. The format tested adaptability with unfamiliar Pokémon. Memory link between Black/White and their sequels transferred story information. The sequels referenced your previous playthrough, creating continuity. This feature made the games feel like a connected narrative, despite being separate purchases. Assist mode in Let's Go made catching Pokémon easier with larger timing windows. This accessibility feature helped younger or less experienced players succeed. Traditional players could ignore it without affecting their experience. Nature synchronization made finding Pokémon with specific natures more reliable. Having a fainted synchronized Pokémon in the lead position increased odds of encountering matching natures. This knowledge became essential for competitive players. Shiny Charm item significantly increased shiny encounter rates after completing the Pokédex. The reward for catching everything made continuing to hunt rare variants more reasonable. The charm acknowledged that shiny hunting was popular enough to support officially. Oval Charm increased egg production speed at daycares. Obtaining it required extensive game completion, but breeders considered it essential. The charm made competitive team building less time-consuming. Catching Charm increased critical capture chances. This item made legendary Pokémon and other difficult catches more manageable. Its existence acknowledged that some players found catching frustrating rather than fun. Shiny hunting methods evolved across generations. Chaining, fishing streaks, and soft resetting all became recognized techniques. The community developed expertise around maximizing odds through various methods. RNG manipulation lets skilled players predict and control random outcomes. This advanced technique required understanding game mechanics deeply. Some considered it cheating, while others viewed it as mastery of the system. Action replay and other cheat devices created alternate ways to obtain Pokémon. Hacked creatures could be nearly indistinguishable from legitimate ones. This raised questions about legitimacy in competitive play. Pokémon Bank served as cloud storage across games. Players could transfer their collections forward through generations. The subscription service ensured Nintendo's continued involvement while providing valuable infrastructure. Pokémon Home expanded Bank's functionality with mobile app integration. Trading through the app let players exchange Pokémon without playing the games. The service centralized collections across all compatible titles. GTS functionality in Home let players trade globally without direct communication. Depositing Pokémon and requesting specific trades enabled asynchronous trading. The system made completing Pokédexes more accessible for isolated players. Room Trade feature created lobbies where multiple players traded simultaneously. This recreated the communal trading experience digitally. The randomness and social aspect made the feature appealing beyond pure efficiency. Wonderbox in Home worked like Wonder Trade, but processed multiple Pokémon overnight. Players deposited Pokémon before sleeping and woke to random results. The delayed gratification created daily ritual of checking outcomes. Moving Pokémon forward through generations preserved team members across decades. Pokémon from Ruby and Sapphire could theoretically reach Sword and Shield. This continuity made collections feel permanent and valuable. Some Pokémon couldn't transfer to later games due to form changes or cut Pokédexes. This caused controversy when popular Pokémon became temporarily unusable. The limitation demonstrated that technical and design constraints affected what could transfer. Regional form variants couldn't be obtained in their original forms in the regions where they changed. Alolan Executor couldn't be caught as regular Executor in Alola. This created odd situations where original forms became exclusive to older games. Gigantamax factors couldn't be added to normal Pokémon, only found on specific individuals. This meant existing teams couldn't access the feature without catching new members. The restriction frustrated players with established favorites. Ribbons marked achievements on specific Pokémon. Contest ribbons, Battle Tower ribbons, and event participation ribbons accumulated on individual Pokémon. Collectors prized Pokémon with extensive ribbon collections as proof of their history. Origin marks indicated which game a Pokémon came from. These stamps created provenance, letting players trace Pokémon's journey through generations. The feature added sentimental value to transferred teams. Pokémon Legends. Arceus introduced action-oriented catching mechanics. Players threw balls directly at Pokémon in real time, rather than through turn-based encounters. This departure from traditional mechanics demonstrated willingness to experiment. Strong style and agile style moves in Legends. Arceus modified turn order. Strong style increased power while sacrificing speed, and agile style did the opposite. The system added tactical decision-making to every move choice. Alpha Pokémon were larger, more aggressive variants with guaranteed strong stats. These mini-bosses provided challenge and valuable catches. The feature made exploration more varied and rewarding. Noble Pokémon boss fights combined action and traditional battling. These encounters required dodging attacks before entering battle mode. The hybrid approach created unique set pieces. Space-time distortions spawned rare Pokémon and items in random locations. These limited events encouraged exploration and quick response. The distortions added dynamic events to exploration. Request system in Legends Arceus created side objectives focused on catching and observing Pokémon. Completing these built the Pokédex while rewarding items. The tasks made catching feel purposeful beyond collection. Research tasks required specific observations, like seeing moves or catching sizes. Completing enough tasks increased research level, improving Pokédex completion. The system made catching and battling feel like scientific documentation. Perfect Pokédex pages required completing all research tasks for a species. This completionist goal extended engagement with individual Pokémon. Each perfect page felt like mastering that species. Crafting system let players make Pokeballs and medicines from gathered materials. This survival element made resource management relevant during exploration. The system encouraged gathering alongside catching. Base camps served as fast travel points and crafting locations. Unlocking them required finding NPCs or completing objectives. The spreading network of camps made backtracking less tedious. Clothing customization in Legends Arceus focused on traditional Japanese aesthetics. The options reflected the game's historical setting and cultural influences. The limited wardrobe felt appropriate to the time period. Pokémon size variation became visible in Legends Arceus. Some individuals were noticeably larger or smaller than others. The variation made each catch feel slightly unique visually. These facts rest in the code and design decisions that built the Pokémon world. Each detail emerged from choices about how games should work and what players should experience. Some became essential features, while others faded into history as new ideas replaced them. The evolution of mechanics across generations shows designers learning what worked and what didn't. Features that players loved returned and expanded, while those that created frustration quietly disappeared. The series maintained core identity while constantly refining the experience. Understanding these facts changes how you see the familiar world. Small details that seemed arbitrary reveal themselves as deliberate choices. The games become conversations between designers and players, each generation responding to feedback and trying new approaches. Some facts demonstrate technical limitations that shaped design. Early games couldn't do certain things, so designers worked around constraints creatively. Later games had more freedom, but sometimes lost charm in the process of adding complexity. The difference between game mechanics and anime logic created two versions of the Pokémon world. Neither is more correct, but they sometimes contradict each other. Players experienced a different reality than viewers, each medium making choices appropriate to its format. Trading mechanics built community from the start. The games couldn't be fully experienced alone, requiring cooperation for complete collections. This social element became part of the series' identity, distinguishing it from purely solo experiences. Competitive play developed organically from systems designed for casual adventure. Mechanics that seemed simple revealed strategic depth when examined closely. The community discovered complexity the designers may not have initially intended. Events and distributions created shared temporal experiences. Players who participated remember obtaining special Pokémon at specific times. These limited offerings made certain Pokémon feel truly rare and special. The gradual relaxation of restrictions made games more accessible. Features that once required extensive knowledge became explained or automated. The series grew to accommodate both dedicated fans and newcomers. Preservation of forward compatibility maintained collection value. Pokémon caught 20 years ago can still exist in current games. This continuity created emotional attachment as teams survived technological transitions. These facts illuminate how a children's game developed layers of complexity. What began as catching creatures evolved into breeding projects, competitive team building, and completionist challenges. The simple core supported surprisingly deep engagement. The world continues growing with each new release. More Pokémon, more mechanics, more features layer onto the foundation. Some additions enhance while others complicate, but the evolution continues regardless. These are the facts you didn't know, the small truths hiding in plain sight. They reshape understanding of a familiar world, revealing the construction beneath the surface. Every detail exists because someone decided it should, and understanding those decisions changes what you see when you play. The naming patterns across regions reveal cultural influences. Japanese puns and wordplay define many Pokémon names in their original language. Translations attempt to preserve these linguistic connections, but sometimes create entirely new meanings. The localization process balances faithfulness to original concepts with creating names that resonate in different languages. Some English names bear no resemblance to their Japanese counterparts. Squirtle became Zenigame, Butterfree became Batterfuri, and Charmander became Hitokage. These transformations show how localization recreates concepts rather than directly translating words. Each version creates its own identity for the same creature. Evolution names sometimes continue patterns in one language, but not others. Bulbasaur, Ivysaur, and Venusaur create a clear progression in English. The Japanese names Fushigidan, Fushigisu, and Fushigibana share root words, but don't follow the same pattern. Translation creates new logic while preserving thematic connections. Type names establish elemental categories that define battle mechanics. 17 types later expanded to 18 when Fairy joined the roster. Each type carries strengths and weaknesses that create the strategic foundation. The system appears simple, but enables complex interactions through dual typing and coverage moves. Dual-type Pokémon combine strengths and weaknesses of both categories. This creates hundreds of unique defensive profiles across species. Some combinations create crippling weaknesses, while others provide excellent coverage. Team building revolves around managing these type interactions. Immunity relationships create hard counters where certain types can't damage others. Ghost can't hit normal, normal can't hit ghost, ground can't hit flying, and several others create absolute defensive walls. These immunities force diverse move pools and strategic switching. STAB bonus multiplies damage when move type matches user's type. This 1.5 times multiplier makes type matching moves preferred when possible. The bonus encourages using moves that align with Pokémon identity while not completely eliminating coverage options. Weather effects dramatically alter battle dynamics. Rain boosts water moves and enables thunder to never miss. Sunshine strengthens fire moves and guarantees solar beam fires immediately. Sandstorm chips non-rock, ground, and steel types while boosting rock type special defense. Hail damages all but ice types each turn. Terrain effects modify moves and provide conditional benefits. Electric terrain boosts electric moves and prevents sleep. Grassy terrain strengthens grass moves and provides gradual healing. Misty terrain weakens dragon moves and prevents status conditions. Psychic terrain boosts psychic moves and blocks priority. Speed tiers determine turn order, making speed one of the most valuable stats. Entire strategies revolve around outspeeding specific threats or ensuring you move after opponents. Choice scarf items, as in speed-boosting natures, exist primarily to manipulate turn order. Priority moves bypass speed calculations, making them strategically critical. Moves like Quick Attack and Aqua Jet always strike first regardless of speed stats. Extreme Speed has even higher priority, creating multiple priority levels that competitive players memorize. Trick Room reverses speed order for 5 turns. This supports slow, powerful Pokémon that normally suffer from moving last. Entire team archetypes built around Trick Room create alternative speed-based strategies. Accuracy and evasion modifiers create probability-based strategies. Moves with less than perfect accuracy trade reliability for power. Evasion-boosting moves like Double Team became controversial enough to be banned in competitive play due to reducing battles to luck-based coin flips. Critical hit rates can be modified through moves and abilities. High critical hit ratio moves like Slash and Stone Edge threaten consistent bonus damage. The Sniper ability further increases critical hit damage, creating Pokémon specialized in critical-based strategies. Status conditions create ongoing effects that persist across turns. Poison damages gradually, burn halves physical attack, paralysis reduces speed and can prevent movement, sleep renders Pokémon inactive for multiple turns, and freeze completely stops actions until it thaws. Confusion and infatuation create temporary status-like effects. Confused Pokémon might hit themselves instead of attacking. Infatuated Pokémon sometimes can't attack opponents of the opposite gender. These volatile status conditions don't persist through switching. Entry hazards punish switching with unavoidable damage. Stealth Rock, Spikes, and Toxic Spikes activate whenever opponents switch Pokémon into battle. Competitive battles often begin with hazard-setting moves because their cumulative damage determines match outcomes. Screens reduce damage from special or physical attacks for 5 turns. Reflect halves physical damage, while Light Screen halves special damage. Setting both screens creates defensive teams that survive attacks which would normally knock out members. Baton Pass transfers stat changes to the switched-in Pokémon. This enables strategies where one Pokémon sets up boosts and passes them to a sweeper. Complex Baton Pass chains became powerful enough to face restrictions in competitive formats. Destiny Bond makes the user's fainting cause the opponent to faint too. This creates psychological pressure in competitive battles as players must decide whether to attack. Ghost types commonly learn this move, fitting their supernatural themes. Explosion and self-destruct make the user faint while dealing massive damage. These suicide moves provide guaranteed damage, but at ultimate cost. They became less common after damage calculation changes reduced their effectiveness. Pain Split averages current HP between user and target. This move helps low HP Pokémon survive while damaging healthy opponents. The unusual calculation makes it situationally valuable when normal attacks would fail. Super Fung halves the target's current HP regardless of stats. This fixed percentage damage makes it useful for weakening extremely bulky opponents. The move bypasses normal damage calculations entirely. Seismic Toss and Nightshade deal damage equal to the user's level. These fixed damage moves ignore attack stats and type effectiveness. They provide consistent damage output, regardless of stat distribution. Transform copies the target's appearance, stats, and moves. Ditto's signature move creates mirror matches instantly. The strategic implications make Ditto valuable despite its poor base stats, as it becomes whatever opposes it. Sketch permanently learns any move the opponent just used. Smeargle's exclusive move enables it to learn impossible move combinations. This creates the most versatile move pool in the game, limited only by having 4 move slots. Mimic temporarily copies a move for the current battle. This allows adapting to opponent strategies by stealing their techniques. The temporary nature makes it less powerful than Sketch, but available to more Pokémon. Metronome randomly selects any move in the game and uses it. This ultimate gamble can produce devastating attacks or completely useless effects. The unpredictability makes it unsuitable for serious strategy, but entertaining for casual play. Sleep Talk randomly uses one of the sleeping Pokemon's other moves. This enables Pokemon to attack while asleep, partially mitigating the condition's drawback. Rest and Sleep Talk combinations create sustainable strategies. Encore forces the target to repeat its last move for several turns. This can lock opponents into unfavorable actions, creating overwhelming advantages. The move punishes poor prediction and rewards reading opponent patterns. Disable prevents the target from using its last move for several turns. This creates temporary vulnerabilities when key moves become unusable. The tactical application requires predicting which move opponents rely on most. Torment prevents consecutive uses of the same move. This forces variety in opponent actions, disrupting established patterns. The move particularly affects choice-locked Pokémon that selected non-attacking moves. Taunt prevents status moves for several turns, forcing opponents to attack. This shuts down defensive strategies reliant on healing and stat boosts. Fast Pokémon using Taunt can prevent slower support Pokémon from executing their strategies. Heal Block prevents all healing for 5 turns. This includes recovery moves, held items, and abilities. The effect creates windows where normally sustainable Pokémon become vulnerable to gradual damage. Magic Room suppresses held items for 5 turns. This disables strategies reliant on specific items like Choice Scarf or Leftovers. The move creates situations where item-dependent Pokémon must function without their planned tools. Wonder Room swaps all Pokémon's defense and special defense stats for 5 turns. This inverts defensive profiles, making physical walls vulnerable to physical attacks and vice versa. The unusual effect creates strategic complexity when predicting damage calculations. Gravity intensifies the battlefield for 5 turns. Flying types and levitating Pokémon lose ground immunity, and move accuracy increases. The effect enables ground-type attacks against normally immune targets. Water Sport and Mud Sport weaken fire and electric moves respectively while active. These field effects persist until the user switches out. Their situational utility made them rarely used despite their potential in specific matchups. Follow Me and Rage Powder redirect all opponents' attacks to the user. In double battles, these moves protect partners by becoming the target. The Tactical Sacrifice enables fragile partners to attack safely. Helping Hand boosts partners' attack power in double battles. This support move increases damage output without directly attacking. Coordinated Strategies use Helping Hand to enable one-hit knockouts that wouldn't otherwise be possible. Ally Switch swaps positions with the partner Pokémon in double battles. This enables protecting vulnerable teammates or dodging predicted attacks. The speed-based repositioning adds layers to double battle positioning. After you makes the target move immediately after the user. This enables slower Pokémon to attack before faster opponents, or allows partners to combine attacks strategically. The move manipulates turn order for tactical advantage. Quash makes the target move last, regardless of speed. This delays opponent actions, potentially preventing crucial moves from occurring before knockout. The move particularly valuable when opponents need to heal or set up before attacking. Wide Guard and Quick Guard protect allies from multi-target and priority moves respectively. These specialized shields create counterplay to specific strategies. Their narrow applications make them situational but powerful when applicable. Mat Block protects the user's entire team from direct attacks on the first turn. This defensive option exists only on the move's first use after switching in. The limitation balances its powerful protective effect. King's Shield and Spiky Shield block attacks while providing additional effects. The signature moves protect while punishing physical attackers. These unique defensive options create identity for their exclusive users. Baneful Bunker and Obstruct provide protection with different side effects. Each signature move adds defensive options to Pokémon that wouldn't normally run traditional Protect. The variety prevents defensive plays from becoming predictable. Detect functions identically to Protect, but appears on different Pokémon. The move exists primarily to provide thematic consistency rather than mechanical distinction. Both moves fail when used consecutively, preventing infinite stalling. Endure ensures survival with 1 HP when hit by attacks that would knock out. This guarantees living one more turn, enabling strategies reliant on surviving specific attacks. The move particularly valuable when combined with Reversal or Flail. Reversal and Flail increase power as user HPs decreases. At minimum HP, this desperation moves reach maximum power. Strategies combining Endure with these moves create dramatic comebacks from near defeat. Counter and Mirror Coat reflect physical and special damage respectively back at opponents. These moves require surviving the attack, but can instantly reverse battles. Predicting attacks correctly transforms received damage into devastating counterattacks. Metal Burst returns damage at higher power than Counter or Mirror Coat. The move's broader coverage and damage increase make it powerful but less reliable. Timing and prediction remain crucial for effective use. Bide stores damage received for 2 turns, then returns it doubled. The lengthy charge period makes it risky in modern fast-paced battles. The move's antiquated design reflects early game balance before sophisticated strategies developed. Revenge and Avalanche double power when user moves last and takes damage. These delayed retaliation moves reward strategic positioning in speed tiers. Slower Pokémon benefit from guaranteed doubled damage. Payback doubles power when the user moves after the target. Unlike Revenge, it doesn't require taking damage. The move provides consistent power to slow Pokémon without additional conditions. Assurance doubles power if the target already took damage that turn. In double battles, partners can soften targets to enable Assurance's boost. The move rewards coordination between teammates. Acrobatics doubles power when the user holds no item. This creates tension between item utility and move power. Some strategies deliberately avoid items to maximize acrobatics damage. Facade doubles power when user suffers from status conditions. Burn normally halves physical attack, but Facade ignores this reduction while doubling damage. The move transforms status conditions from hindrances into advantages. Smelling salts and wake up slap deal double damage to paralyzed or sleeping targets respectively while curing the condition. These situational moves combine offense with status healing. Their narrow applications thus limited usage despite interesting mechanics. Weather Ball changes type and doubles power during weather effects. This makes the move versatile for weather-based teams. The type change ensures super effective hits become more likely during appropriate weather. Terrain Pulse similarly changes type based on active terrain. The move provides similar versatility for terrain-based strategies. Its recent introduction shows continued mechanical evolution across generations. Hidden Powers type varied based on individual values. Before its removal, this enabled customized coverage on Pokémon with limited move pools. The calculation required specific IV combinations, creating tension between perfect stats and desired type. Natural Gifts type is in power, depended on held berry. This allowed flexible coverage by carrying different berries. The one-time use limited practicality, despite interesting concept. Fling through the held item at opponents for damage varying by item. Heavy items dealt more damage while different items had additional effects. The consumable nature made it impractical despite creative concept. Present randomly dealt damage or healed opponents. The unpredictability made it useless competitively, but captured the gift-giving theme. The move existed purely for thematic rather than strategic purposes. Frustration and returns power scaled with low and high friendship respectively. Maximum Happiness Return became one of the strongest normal type moves available. The friendship mechanic integrated story progression into competitive viability. Trump Card increased power as PP decreased. Starting weak, the move became devastating after multiple uses. The progressive strengthening rewarded extended battles, but created risky resource management. Solar Beam charged for one turn, then attacked. Sunshine eliminated the charge period, making it instant. The move defined solar-based strategies, where setup enabled consistent, devastating attacks. Razor Wind, Skull Bash, and Sky Attack all required charging turns. These outdated moves suffered from two-turn execution, making them strategically inferior. Later generations introduced items and abilities to skip charge times. Bounce, Dig, Dive, and Fly made users invulnerable during charge turns. This created mind games around when to use Protect or Switch. The semi-invulnerability added defensive utility to otherwise straightforward attacks. Shadow Force and Phantom Force functioned like Fly for ghost types. The invulnerability turn provided safety while positioning for powerful attacks. These moves combined offensive pressure with defensive positioning. Geomancy boosted multiple stats, but required charging. The signature move's incredible power balanced against setup vulnerability. Power Herb Item enabled instant activation, creating devastating strategies. Hyper Beam and Giga Impact required recharge turns after use. The immense power balanced against being locked into inaction. The vulnerability made these moves risky outside of finishing knocked out opponents. Outrage, Pedal Dance, and Thrash locked users into attacking for several turns, then confused them. The loss of control created vulnerability despite high power. These berserk attacks rewarded aggression while punishing extended commitment. Uproar prevented all Pokémon from sleeping for several turns. The chaotic attack continued until its duration expired. The sleep prevention occasionally provided utility, but mostly added flavor. Rollout and Ice Ball increased power with consecutive hits over 5 turns. Missing or switching reset the sequence. The escalating damage rewarded committing to extended attacks, but created predictability. Fury Cutter doubled power with each consecutive hit up to a cap. The move started weak, but became formidable if maintained. Switching or missing reset progress, making it unreliable despite potential. Echoed Voice increased power when used consecutively by any Pokémon on the field. This enabled double strategies, where both partners used the move. The stacking effect created team-based power escalation. Round doubled power when multiple Pokémon used it in the same turn. This doubles-focused move rewarded coordination. The musical theme fit the mechanical execution perfectly. Final Gambit made the user faint while dealing damage equal to its current HP. This ultimate sacrifice move guaranteed substantial damage. The complete commitment made it suitable only for ending battles. Healing Wish and Lunar Dance healed the switched-in Pokémon while making the user faint. These ultimate support moves traded one Pokémon for another's complete restoration. The sacrifice enabled comebacks and sustained strategies. Memento sharply lowered opponent stats while making user faint. This debilitating effect created opportunities for fragile teammates. The sacrifice felt thematically appropriate for such devastating stat reduction. Parting Shot lowered opponent stats and forced user to switch. Unlike Memento, the user survived. The move provided safe switching while weakening threats. U-turn and Volt Switch dealt damage and switched the user out. These pivot moves enabled momentum control while maintaining offensive pressure. They became fundamental to balanced team building. Flip Turn provided water-type pivoting, like Volt Switch for electric. The move's introduction showed mechanics spreading across type categories. Each type slowly gained similar tools for equivalent strategies. Teleport was changed from an escape move to a pivoting switch move. This transformation made it competitively relevant. After 20 years of uselessness, the buff showed willingness to update old mechanics. Fake Out always flinched, but only worked on the first turn. This enabled turn 1 disruption in doubles battles. The guaranteed flinch made it one of the most common laid moves. First Impression worked like Fake Out, but dealt more damage. The Dark type variant showed type-specific mechanical variations. The similar restrictions maintained balance while providing typing variety. Sucker Punch provided priority but only hit if opponents attacked. This created mind games around move selection. The conditional nature balanced its powerful priority effect. Ice Shard, Mach Punch, and Aqua Jet, Bullet Punch, Shadow Sneak, and Accelerock all provided typing-specific priority. Each added priority options to different types. The variety ensured priority wasn't type-locked. Grassy Glide gained priority during grassy terrain. This conditional priority created terrain-based strategies. The move showed how mechanics could interact with field effects. Expanding Force doubled power and hit both opponents during psychic terrain. Terrain-based power moves created specialized strategies. The mechanical interaction showed evolving design philosophy. Steel Roller removed terrain while dealing damage, but failed if no terrain existed. This anti-terrain move provided counterplay to terrain strategies. The conditional execution balanced its utility. Court Change swapped entry hazards and screens between sides. This defensive tech move could instantly reverse board states. The strategic implications made it valuable in hazard-heavy metagames. Rapid Spin removed entry hazards from the user's side while dealing damage. This essential utility move became mandatory for hazard removal. Later generations added other removal options to reduce dependency. Defog removed hazards from both sides and lowered opponent evasion. The bilateral removal created strategic considerations around when to use it. The evasion drop provided additional utility. Aromatherapy and Heal Bell cured all status conditions on the user's team. These cleric moves enabled status-vulnerable teams to function. Having dedicated support, Pokémon transformed team-building options. Haze reset all stat changes on all Pokémon. This defensive option countered setup sweepers attempting to accumulate boosts. The universal reset leveled playing fields against boosted opponents. Clear Smog dealt damage and reset targets' stat changes. Unlike Haze, it only affected one Pokémon while dealing damage. The targeted nature made it more practical than Haze in specific situations. Spectral Thief stole targets' stat boosts while dealing damage. This ghost-type signature move punished setup attempts while benefiting from them. The theft mechanic created unique, strategic interactions. Topsy-Turvy reversed all stat changes on the target. Boosts became drops, and vice versa. The move punished excessive setup while potentially backfiring against debuffed opponents. Guard Split and Power Split averaged stats between user and target. These unusual moves created parity in specific stat categories. Against extremely specialized opponents, they provided equalization strategies. Speed Swap exchanged speed stats between user and target. This enabled slow Pokémon to steal speed from fast opponents. The bizarre effect created niche but powerful applications. Heart Swap exchanged all stat changes between user and target. This let users steal opponent setup while giving them any debuffs. The complete exchange created dramatic reversals. Psych Up copied all stat changes from target to user. This allowed benefiting from opponent setup without preventing them from keeping boosts. The move rewarded timing opponent boosting phases. Power Trick swapped users' attack and defense stats. This enabled defense-heavy Pokémon to become physical attackers. The unusual transformation created unexpected threats. Trick and Switcheroo Swapped held items between user and target. These disruptive moves could cripple choice-locked Pokémon or disable healing items. The strategic applications made them common competitive choices. Bestow gave the user's held item to the target if they held nothing. This enabled passing items like Flame Orb to trigger opponent abilities. The one-way transfer created setup opportunities. Recycle restored the user's consumed held item. This enabled repeated berry use or other consumable items. The move created sustainable item-based strategies. Knockoff removed and disabled the target's held item while dealing increased damage. This became one of the most common moves due to item removal value. The dual utility made it exceptionally efficient. Embargo prevented target from using items for 5 turns. This created windows where item-dependent strategies failed. The move's Nesh application limited usage despite effectiveness. Covet and Thief dealt damage and stole target's held item if user held none. These acquisition moves provided permanent item gain. The conditional requirement balanced their stealing effect. Incinerate destroyed certain held berries permanently while dealing damage. This anti-berry move had narrow applications, but completely shut down berry strategies. The permanent destruction distinguished it from item removal. Magic Coat reflected status moves back at the user. This defensive tech protected while punishing opponent status attempts. The reflection created mind games around move selection. Snatch stole beneficial status moves opponents attempted to use. This allowed grabbing opponent healing or stat boosts. The theft mechanic rewarded prediction and disrupted setup. Imprison prevented opponents from using moves the user knew. This created strategic team building around shared moves. The niche effect rarely saw use, but occasionally created hard counters. Roleplay copied the target's ability. This enabled gaining powerful abilities temporarily. The theft provided flexibility in ability-based strategies. Skill swap exchanged abilities between user and target. Unlike roleplay, both Pokémon changed abilities. The mutual exchange created complex strategic possibilities. Gastro Acid suppressed target's ability until switching. This disabled ability-reliant strategies completely. The move provided hard counterplay to specific threats. Simple Beam changed target's ability to simple. This overwrote abilities with something generally less useful. The forced change disrupted ability-dependent Pokémon. Entrainment changed target's ability to match the user's. This could spread beneficial abilities or impose detrimental ones. The strategic applications depended heavily on user ability. Worry Seed changed target's ability to insomnia. This prevented sleep while disabling their natural ability. The sleep immunity sometimes helped opponents, creating situational applications. Core Enforcer suppressed abilities of Pokémon that moved earlier that turn. This conditional suppression required speed control. The targeting restriction balanced the powerful effect. Neutralizing Gas suppressed all abilities while the user remained in battle. This field-wide suppression disrupted all ability-based strategies. The passive effect created unique team-building considerations. Abilities provide passive effects that define how Pokémon function. From simple stat boosts to complex conditional triggers, abilities add strategic depth. Team building revolves around ability synergies as much as type coverage. Intimidate lowered opponent attack on entry. This made switching valuable for repeatedly applying the debuff. The ability became one of the most common due to its universal utility. Drought, Drizzle, Sandstream, and Snow Warning automatically set weather on entry. Weather setting abilities enabled weather-based team strategies. The automation eliminated needing to use manual weather moves. Electric Surge, Grassy Surge, Misty Surge, and Psychic Surge set terrains automatically. Like weather abilities, these enabled terrain strategies without manual setup. The entry activation ensured terrain reliability. Levitate provided ground immunity regardless of typing. This ability allowed non-flying types to avoid ground-type attacks. The immunity made Levitate universally valuable. Wonder Guard made the user immune to all non-super effective attacks. Shedinja's exclusive ability created the most extreme defensive profile. The 1 HP balance made it fragile despite immunities. Sturdy prevented one-hit knockouts and ensured survival at full HP. This enabled focus sash-like survival without item investment. The ability supported comeback strategies and safe setup. Multiscale and Shadow Shield halved damage when at full HP. These similar abilities rewarded maintaining high health. The defensive boost made them exceptionally valuable. Filter and Solid Rock reduced super effective damage. These abilities softened type disadvantages. The damage reduction improved survivability against coverage moves. Prism Armor worked like Filter while adding flavor. The functionally identical ability showed naming variety. Multiple Pokémon could have similar effects with different names. Fluffy halved physical damage but doubled fire damage. This double-edged ability created specific vulnerabilities. The trade-off balanced exceptional physical defense. Fur Coat doubled defense stat. This simple but powerful ability created exceptional physical walls. The multiplicative boost distinguished it from additive stat increases. Marvel Scale increased defense when suffering status conditions. This reward for being statist encouraged absorbing status moves. The ability transformed hindrances into advantages. Guts increased attack when suffering status conditions. This ability made Burn's attack reduction irrelevant. The boost encouraged using status moves on Guts users. Quick Feet increased speed during status conditions. This enabled outspeeding faster opponents after being statist. The ability particularly valuable combined with Flame Orb. Toxic Boost and Flare Boost increased attack and special attack, respectively, when badly poisoned or burned. These extreme abilities required specific setup. The self-damaging cost balanced their power. Poison Heal restored HP when poisoned instead of taking damage. This incredible ability combined with Toxic Orb created sustainable strategies. The HP recovery outweighed the item slot cost. Magic Guard prevented all indirect damage. This made entry hazards, weather, status, and recoil completely harmless. The immunity to chip damage created exceptional longevity. Regenerator restored 1/3 HP when switching out. This passive healing enabled repeated pivoting without HP loss. The ability became defining for several defensive Pokémon. Moody randomly raised one stat sharply and lowered another stat on each turn. The unpredictable boosts created chaos. The ability became banned in most competitive formats due to its randomness. Speed Boost increased speed, each turn automatically. This meant slower Pokémon became faster over time. The passive acceleration created inevitable sweep conditions. Adaptability increased stab bonus from 1.5 to 2 times. This made same-type moves devastating. The ability encouraged monotype attacks over coverage. Technician boosted weak moves' power. This made low-power attacks competitive with strong ones. The ability enabled spam strategies with reliable moves. Skill Link made multi-hit moves always hit maximum times. This eliminated randomness from moves like Icicle Spear. The guaranteed hits made multi-hit moves reliable. Parental Bond made the user attack twice, with the second hit dealing reduced damage. This incredible ability effectively doubled offensive output. Its power led to nerfs across generations. Tough Claws increased contact move damage. This simple boost improved most physical attacks. The ability had universal application for physical attackers. Iron Fist boosted punching moves' power. This thematic ability enhanced specific move categories. The flavor matched the mechanical benefit perfectly. Reckless increased recoil move power. This enabled devastating damage from moves with drawbacks. The ability embraced the risk-reward of recoil attacks. Rockhead prevented recoil damage. This allowed using recoil moves without penalty. The combination with high-power recoil attacks created safe devastation. Sheer Force removed additional effects from moves but increased power. This trade-off eliminated useful effects for raw damage. The ability changed move selection priorities. Serene Grace doubled secondary effect chances. This made flinches and status chances far more reliable. The ability created frustration through increased luck dependence. Super Luck increased critical hit ratios. Combined with high crit moves and items, this enabled consistent critical hits. The ability made luck more controllable. Sniper increased critical hit damage. This specialized ability stacked with critical focused strategies. The multiplier made critical hits devastating. Blaze, Torrent, Overgrow, and Swarm boosted type-specific moves when HP fell low. These standard starter abilities encouraged comebacks. The Desperation boost rewarded surviving to low health. Solar Power boosted special attack during Sunshine at HP cost. This glass cannon ability created extremely powerful but fragile attackers. The weather dependency added strategic requirements. Chlorophyll, Swift Swim, Sand Rush, and Slush Rush doubled speed during specific weather. These abilities enabled weather-based sweeping strategies. The speed doubling made otherwise slow Pokémon threatening. Forecast changed cast form's type based on weather. This unique transformation ability showcased weather interactions. The flexibility came at the cost of mediocre stats. Flower Gift changed Cherum's form and boosted ally stats during Sunshine. This support ability aided doubles partners. The transformation added visual interest to the mechanical benefit. Trace copied opponent's ability on entry. This enabled adapting to threats dynamically. The copying created unpredictable strategic situations. Imposter transformed into the opponent immediately. Ditto's signature ability made it the ultimate counter pick. The instant transformation distinguished it from transform move usage. Illusion disguised the user as the last party member. This deceptive ability created mind games. Opponents had to predict through the disguise. Protean and Libero changed users' type to match moves used. This eliminated disadvantageous dab while gaining beneficial typing. The constant type shifting created exceptional versatility. Stance change altered Edgeslash's form based on move category. Attack mode had offensive stats, while defense mode had defensive stats. The dynamic transformation created unique gameplay. Power Construct transformed Zigurday at half HP. This mid-battle evolution dramatically shifted stats. The transformation created dramatic comeback potential. Schooling changed wishy-washy between forms based on level and HP. The massive stat shift between forms created binary power states. The level threshold ensured appropriate timing. Disguise blocked one attack completely. Mimikyu's signature ability guaranteed safe setup. The one-time protection became incredibly valuable. Ice Face blocked physical attacks until broken. This rechargeable protection worked during hail. The weather dependency balanced the defensive benefit. Zen mode changed Darmanitan's form at low HP. The transformation shifted from offensive to defensive stats. The trigger condition created strategic HP management. Shields Down removed Minier's shell at half HP. This revealed its core with different stats and typing. The dramatic transformation showcased creative ability design. Battle Bond transformed Greninja after knockouts. This special form existed only for event-distributed individuals. The limited availability made it feel exclusive. RKS system changed type. Null's type based on held memory. This ability mimicked Arceus's multi-type mechanic. The type flexibility enabled role adaptation. Multi-type changed Arceus's type based on held plate. This signature ability made Arceus adaptable to any role. The flexibility emphasized its legendary status. Color change switched users' type to match moves that hit it. This reactive typing created unpredictable situations. The constant shifting prevented stable type advantages. Klutz prevented held item effects. This detrimental ability existed for balance purposes. No strategic reason existed to want Klutz. Truant made the user inactive is every other turn. This crippling ability balanced exceptional stats. The alternating action created frustrating gameplay. Defeatist halved stats at low HP. This punishing ability contradicted typical comeback mechanics. The ability crippled Archeops despite good stats. Slow start halved stats for 5 turns. This startup period weakened Regigigas dramatically. The ability prevented an otherwise powerful Pokémon from dominating. Stall made the user always move last. This penalty created specific strategic applications. The guaranteed low priority enabled conditional move usage. Pick up randomly obtained items after battles. This ability rewarded walking with specific Pokémon. The randomness made farming certain items possible. Honey Gather collected honey periodically. This gathering ability provided passive resource generation. The limited usefulness made it largely decorative. Harvest had a chance to restore consumed berries. During Sunshine, restoration became guaranteed. The ability enabled infinite berry strategies. Frisk revealed opponents' held item. This information advantage enabled better predictions. Knowing items improved strategic decision-making. Anticipation warned when opponents knew super effective or one-hit knockout moves. This advance warning helped prevent surprises. The ability value depended on player knowledge. Forewarn revealed the strongest opponent move. This information helped prepare for threats. Knowing the most dangerous move influenced switching decisions. Telepathy prevented damage from partner moves in doubles. This enabled using powerful spread moves safely. The immunity improved coordination options. Symbiosis passed held item to partner when theirs was consumed. This support ability enabled item-based strategies. The transfer created resource-sharing tactics. Plus and minus boosted special attack when paired with each other. These companion abilities encouraged specific team combinations. The paired nature made them feel connected. Battery boosted ally special attack in doubles. This support ability aided special attackers. The passive boost improved team coordination. Receiver and Power of Alchemy copied abilities from fainted allies. These inheritance abilities created escalating power. The ability copying rewarded specific team compositions. Cheek Pouch healed when consuming berries. This enhanced berry effectiveness significantly. The healing multiplication made berry strategies more sustainable. Ripen doubled berry effects. This multiplication made all berries more powerful. The ability changed berry choice priorities. Unburden doubled speed after consuming held item. This enabled extreme speed tiers after item use. The transformation created dramatic momentum shifts. Gluttony consumed HP restoration berries earlier. This earlier activation improved survival. The ability timing change made berries more reliable. Slow Start, Stall, and Defeatist, Truant, and Klutz represented detrimental abilities that harmed users. These existed for balance rather than benefit. Players avoided these abilities whenever possible. Competitive and Defiant raised stats. When stats were lowered, these punished opponent stat drops. The abilities discouraged using debuff strategies. Rattled, weak armor, and stamina modified stats when hit by specific types or any attack. These reactive abilities created dynamic stat changes. The triggers enabled snowballing or recovery. Emergency exit and wimp out forced switching at half HP. These escape abilities prevented knockouts but lost momentum. The automatic switching created mixed benefits. Curious Medicine cured ally status conditions when entering in doubles. This passive cleansing supported teams. The automatic cure helped maintain partner health. Pastel Veil prevented poison status on the user and allies. This immunity helped poison weak teams. The team-wide protection distinguished it from simple immunity. Aroma Veil prevented mental status moves on allies. This protection blocked taunt and encore. The defensive utility helped support strategies. Sweet Veil prevented sleeps on the user and allies. This team immunity created safe rest opportunities. The protection particularly valuable in doubles. Insomnia and Vital Spirit prevented sleep on the user. These simple immunities protected against specific strategies. The value depended on sleep move prevalence. Immunity prevented poison status. This straightforward protection had constant value. The immunity never hurt to have. Limber prevented paralysis. This protection maintained speed reliability. The immunity particularly valuable for speed-based strategies. Water Veil prevented burn. This protection maintained physical attack power. Physical attackers valued this immunity highly. Magma Armor prevented freeze. This protection eliminated a rare but devastating status. The immunity had limited practical value due to freeze rarity. Oblivious prevented infatuation and intimidate. This mixed protection had situational value. The ability prevented specific disruption tactics. Own Tempo prevented confusion. This protection eliminated a frustrating status. The immunity value depended on confusion move usage. Inner Focus prevented flinching. This protection enabled reliable action execution. The immunity particularly valuable against Fake Out. Water Absorb, Volt Absorb, Sap Sipper, and flash fire restored HP or boosted stats when hit by specific types. These absorption abilities turned weaknesses into healing. The defensive value made them excellent. Motor Drive and Lightning Rod redirected electric attacks while providing benefits. These draw abilities protected partners in doubles. The beneficial effect encouraged getting hit. Storm Drain similarly worked for water attacks. The special attack boost combined with redirection, the ability protected while empowering, justified increased attack when hit by dark moves. This reactive boost punished specific attacks. The conditional nature limited applications. Water Compaction sharply raised defense when hit by water moves. This specialized boost created niche value. The trigger rarity limited general use. Steam Engine sharply raised speed when hit by water or fire moves. This explosive boost enabled immediate threats. The trigger condition required setup. Anger Point maximized attack when critically hit. This extreme boost required luck triggering. The Unreliability limited strategic use. Download raised attack or special attack based on opponent's lower defense. This adaptive ability chose optimal boosting. The intelligence created immediate advantages. Intrepid Sword and Dauntless Shield raised attack or defense respectively on entry. These legendary signature abilities provided immediate boosts. The free setup made them exceptionally valuable. Asgardians raised stats based on terrain. This conditional boosting rewarded terrain strategies. The variety created diverse applications. Moxie and related abilities boosted stats after knockouts. These snowball abilities enabled sweep potential. The escalating power created inevitable victories or defeats. Berserk raised special attack and when damaged below half HP. This threshold trigger created specific strategic setups. The controlled activation enabled planning around it. Steelworker boosted steel-type moves. This simple type boost enhanced specific attack categories. The straightforward benefit had universal application for steel moves. Dragon's Maw and related abilities boosted specific type moves. These simple enhancers improved type-focused strategies. The specialization encouraged type commitment. Transistor and related abilities similarly boosted other types. The consistency across type-specific boosts showed design patterns. Each type slowly gained equivalent tools. Normalize made all user moves normal type. This prevented stab from other types, while enabling normal boosts. The conversion created niche applications. Pixelate, aerolate, refrigerate, and galvanize converted normal moves to other types while boosting power. These conversion abilities enabled powerful stab attacks. The transformed moves maintained boosted damage. Liquid Voice made sound moves water type. This Nosh conversion had limited applications. The specific category restriction limited utility. The mechanics reveal a world of mathematical precision. Every interaction calculates according to formulas determining outcomes. Understanding these numbers transforms gameplay from intuition to strategy. Damage calculation considers attacking stat, defending stat, move power, stab, effectiveness, and random variation. The formula produces ranges rather than exact values. Critical understanding enables predicting knockout thresholds. Stat calculation derives from base stats, individual values, effort values, nature, and level. The complexity ensures infinite variety between individual Pokémon. Two identical species rarely have identical stats. Experience formulas vary between growth rates. Fast, medium slow, slow, erratic, and fluctuating create different leveling curves. The variation affects early and late game progression differently. Catch rate formulas incorporate target HP, status conditions, ball effectiveness, and random chance. Understanding mechanics helps optimize capture success. The math can be manipulated for better odds. Breeding mechanics follow specific inheritance rules. Gender, abilities, natures, and individual values pass down with varying probabilities. Mastering breeding enables controlled production of competitive Pokémon. Gender ratios vary by species, affecting breeding difficulty. Some species are exclusively male or female, others have balanced ratios or heavy skews. Egg groups determine compatibility. Pokémon in shared groups can breed together. The system creates logical but sometimes surprising pairings. The breeding mechanics evolved across generations. Later games added more control over inheritance. The increasing player agency made competitive breeding more accessible. Chain breeding involved using intermediate Pokémon to pass moves across species. This complex process enabled learning moves through creative parentage. The chains sometimes required multiple steps. Egg moves could only be learned through breeding. These moves provided coverage or utility unavailable naturally. Competitive Pokémon often required egg moves. Masuda method odds improved with each generation. The developers recognized shiny hunting's popularity. The gradual improvements made rare variants more obtainable. The soft resetting community developed extensive documentation around legendary encounters. Specific frame timings enabled guaranteed good natures, or IVs. This knowledge transformed random encounters into controllable outcomes. Pokerus spreading followed specific mechanics. Understanding transmission ensured maintaining infections. The beneficial virus became something to deliberately cultivate. Effort value training targeted specific stats through battling appropriate Pokémon. Each species gave specific yields. Optimized routing minimized training time. Power items enhanced specific EV gains while having speed. These training tools accelerated stat optimization. The temporary speed penalty was acceptable during training. Pokejobs and other passive training features streamlined EV training in recent games. The automation reduced grinding requirements. Competitive preparation became more accessible. Hidden abilities represented rarer variants of existing Pokémon. Special encounters or breeding produced these alternatives. The additional options increased strategic diversity. Ability capsules enabled changing between normal abilities. This removed permanent choice pressure. The item investment prevented casual changing. Ability patches changed abilities to hidden variants. This late-game item enabled transforming caught Pokémon. The accessibility improvement reduced breeding requirements. Evolution methods demonstrated creative trigger variety. The games constantly introduced new evolution conditions across generations. Happiness evolution required specific friendship thresholds. Walking, battling, and avoiding fainting raised happiness. The invisible system created uncertainty around timing. Time of day evolutions split day and night variants. This simple condition created version exclusivity within games. The requirement encouraged playing at different times. Location-based evolutions required being in specific areas. Glacial rocks, moss rocks, and magnetic fields enabled certain transformations. The exploration requirement made evolution feel tied to place. Move-based evolutions required knowing specific techniques. Some Pokémon evolved only after learning particular moves. This created order dependencies in training. Gender-based split evolutions created branching paths. Male and female specimens evolved differently. The divergence showed biological dimorphism. High beauty or high attack stats triggered certain evolutions. These invisible stat requirements created surprise evolutions. Most players discovered them accidentally. Upside-down game system orientation triggered specific evolutions. This unusual condition confused players initially. The physicality made evolution feel interactive. Special environmental moves like rollout triggered evolutions when learned and used. Those specific action requirements created discovery moments. The unusual conditions stood out among simpler triggers. Version-exclusive Pokémon encouraged trading between games. This design created social necessity from the first generation. The exclusivity drove community interaction. Event distributions provided time-limited acquisitions. Missing events meant missing Pokémon permanently until potential redistributions. This scarcity created genuine rarity. Serial code distributions required physical presence at events or purchases. The exclusivity favored specific regions or participants. Geographic limitations created inequality. Wi-Fi mystery gift distributions democratized event access. Players worldwide could receive distributions simultaneously. The improvement increased accessibility dramatically. QR code scanning enabled sharing encounters and distributions. The technology streamlined distribution mechanics. The ease of use improved event participation. Linked trades created the original social core. Cable connections between systems enabled exchanges. The physical connection made trading an event. Wireless trading removed cable requirements. As local area networking simplified the process. The convenience maintained social aspects. Online trading through Global Trade Station created asynchronous exchanges. Players deposited Pokémon requesting specific returns. The system functioned continuously without simultaneous presence. Wonder Trade randomized receiving Pokémon. The surprise element created excitement and disappointment. The feature encouraged generosity and community participation. Link battles established player versus player competition. The direct confrontation showcased team-building skill. Competitive scenes emerged from this foundation. BattleSpot created matchmaking for online battles. Rating systems tracked competitive success. The infrastructure supported growing competitive community. Championship formats developed standardized rules. VGC formats established official competitive standards. The structured competition legitimized Pokémon battling. Simulators like Pokémon Showdown enabled instant team testing. These unofficial tools democratized competitive access. The lower barrier entry expanded the competitive community. The official games gradually incorporated simulator features. Team Preview, like instant competitive teams, and rental codes lowered entry barriers. The improvements acknowledged simulator influence. Nuzlocke challenges created self-imposed difficulty rules. Permanent death and limited catches transformed gameplay. The community-created format gained widespread recognition. Randomizers altered game data for new experiences. Randomized encounters, moves, and items created endless variety. The modification tools extended game lifespan. ROM hacks created entirely new games using existing engines. Fan-made regions and stories expanded the universe. The creative community demonstrated passionate engagement. These facts accumulate into comprehensive understanding. Each detail connects to larger systems and design philosophies. The games reveal themselves as carefully constructed experiences. The journey through these revelations shows how depth hides beneath surface simplicity. Mechanics that seem straightforward contain extensive complexity. Understanding transforms playing into mastery. Every fact represents choices made during development. Designers considered alternatives and selected specific implementations. The accumulated decisions created the games we know. Some facts demonstrate technical limitations overcome creatively. Early hardware constraints forced clever solutions. Later, technical freedom enabled ambitious features. Other facts show evolving design philosophy across decades. Early mechanics sometimes conflict with later approaches. The franchise grew while maintaining core identity. Understanding these facts enriches every future playthrough. Details that once seemed arbitrary reveal themselves as deliberate. The games feel more crafted, more considered. The community knowledge that developed around these mechanics shows dedicated engagement. Players discovered, documented, and shared information extensively. The collective understanding surpassed any individual knowledge. This exploration through hidden details reveals the construction beneath the surface. Every battle carries mathematical precision. Every encounter follows programmed rules. Yet somehow magic persists within systematic structure. The facts settle into memory, reshaping how you see familiar screens. Routes walked hundreds of times hold new meaning. Battles fought thousands of times reveal deeper strategy. The world grows richer through understanding. Musical themes carried meaning beyond simple background accompaniment. Each route, town, and battle scenario received compositions that shaped emotional tone. The melodies became inseparable from the locations they represented. Hearing specific themes instantly transported players back to childhood moments. Lavender Town's theme achieved a legendary status through its unsettling atmosphere. The simple melody used frequencies that created psychological unease. Whether intentional or accidental, the effect proved memorable. Generations of players remembered that specific musical choice. Bicycle theme became iconic through repetition and catchiness. Players spent extensive time riding bikes between locations. The upbeat melody accompanied countless hours of travel. Its recognition extended beyond active players into general gaming culture. Surf music played during water travel varied between generations. Some versions created peaceful ambiance, while others felt more adventurous. The musical choice affected how water routes felt emotionally. Long ocean crossings needed appropriate soundtracks. Battle themes escalated in intensity based on opponent importance. Wild encounters had simple loops, while trainer battles added complexity. Gym leader themes increased drama further. Champion battles received the most elaborate compositions. Legendary encounter themes built tension before crucial captures. These unique tracks played only during specific moments. The music signaled that something special was occurring. Players remembered these themes decades later. Victory fanfares rewarded successful battles with triumphant melodies. The short musical phrases became deeply associated with success. Hearing them triggered satisfaction, regardless of context. The Pavlovian connection between music and achievement ran deep. Pokémon Center Healing Jingle became the franchise's most recognized sound. The brief melody played thousands of times per playthrough. Its association with safety and restoration made it comforting. The sound meant everything would be okay. Low HP warning beeps created urgency during battles. The escalating tempo increased stress as health depleted. Players learned to fear that specific sound. It meant desperation and potential defeat. Evolution music built anticipation during transformations. The dramatic theme made evolution feel momentous. Canceling evolution to hear the music became common. The composition elevated mechanical changes into events. Rival battle themes captured competitive tension between characters. These tracks played repeatedly throughout games. The music established rivals as significant opponents. Hearing the theme meant facing personal challenges. Credits music provided closure after completing games. These extended compositions celebrated journey completion. Listening to them evoked nostalgia for the adventure. The music marked endings and new beginnings. Sound effects beyond music created the world's audio landscape. Pokémon cries distinguished every species uniquely. Menu sounds provided tactile feedback. Ambient effects brought environments to life. Pokémon cries evolved from simple electronic noises to more complex sounds. Early games used basic waveforms due to technical limitations. Later generations added layers and nuance. The cries became more organic and distinctive. Certain cries achieved fame through frequent exposure. Pikachu's cry became globally recognized. Jigglypuff's song-based cry matched its singing character. Coughing's cry sounded appropriately toxic and bubbly. Legendary Pokémon received longer, more elaborate cries. These sounds conveyed power and importance. Hearing them made encounters feel significant. The audio design emphasized legendary status. Regional bird Pokémon often shared similar cry patterns. This created subtle connections between early route encounters. The familiarity helped establish regional identity. Players noticed these patterns unconsciously. Starter Pokémon cries needed to be appealing since players heard them constantly. The sounds couldn't be annoying despite frequent repetition. This created design challenges for audio teams. The cries needed charm and staying power. Evolution sometimes changed cries dramatically, while other times they remained similar. Drastic changes emphasized transformation, while continuity maintained identity. The choice depended on how evolution altered the Pokémon's concept. Audio design supported visual changes. Shiny Pokémon sparkle sound effect became deeply satisfying to encounter. The distinctive chime accompanied extremely rare sightings. Players trained themselves to recognize it instantly. Missing that sound meant missing potential shinies. Critical hit sound effects conveyed the bonus damage through audio. The distinct noise made critical hits feel impactful. Players learned to recognize them without checking text. Sound communicated mechanical information efficiently. Super effective attack sounds differed from normal hits. The audio feedback confirmed type advantage instantly. This helped players learn matchups through repeated exposure. Sound became a teaching tool. Text speed settings affected gameplay pace dramatically. Slow text frustrated experienced players, while fast text overwhelmed newcomers. Finding personal preference improved experience significantly. The option acknowledged different player needs. Menu navigation sounds provided constant feedback throughout gameplay. Opening menus, selecting options, and canceling actions all had distinct sounds. The audio design made interfaces feel responsive. Silent menus would feel broken. Save file confirmation sound reassured players their progress was secure. That brief chime meant hours of work were protected. The psychological importance exceeded its simple function. Hearing it provided peace of mind. Trading completion jingle celebrated successful exchanges. The sound marked the permanence of trades. It meant saying goodbye to sent Pokémon forever. The finality made the sound bittersweet. Hatching egg sounds signaled new arrivals. The cracking and emergence noises built anticipation. Discovering what hatched became a small moment of excitement. The audio enhanced the reveal. Level-up sounds provided constant positive reinforcement. Frequent exposure to this reward sound-conditioned players. The association between progress and pleasant audio was intentional. Sound design shaped behavior subtly. TM and HM learning sounds confirmed move acquisition. These important moments needed clear audio markers. The sounds indicated successful teaching. Audio confirmed menu actions had consequences. Poisoned status sound effect warned of ongoing damage. The bubbling toxic noise happened regularly during affected turns. The constant reminder kept status visible even when not actively checking. Sound prevented forgetting important conditions. Paralysis static sound conveyed the shocking effect. The electrical crackling matched the mechanical impact. Audio made abstract status effects feel physical. Sound brought mechanics to life. Sleep sound effects showed unconscious Pokémon couldn't act. The peaceful sleeping noises contrasted battle intensity. The audio made inaction clear. Sound communicated inability to participate. Burn crackling sounds matched the damage over time. Fire audio made the status feel present. The persistent sound reminded players of ongoing harm. Audio maintained awareness of battlefield conditions. Frozen ice sounds conveyed complete immobility. The crystalline effect matched visual ice effects. Breaking free from freeze had its own distinct sound. Audio tracked status changes clearly. Confusion sound effects suggested disorientation through swirling audio. The befuddled noises matched the mental state. Self-inflicted damage had distinct impact sounds. Audio differentiated confusion from normal attacks. Infatuation Heart's sound effect conveyed romantic attraction. The cutesy noise matched the lighthearted status effect. It contrasted sharply with serious battle sounds. Audio added personality to mechanics. Flinching sound effects showed interrupted actions. The startled noise indicated prevention of movement. Players learned to anticipate this through audio cues. Sound communicated denied turns instantly. Weather sound effects created ambient environmental presence. Rain sounds, sandstorm winds, hail impacts, and harsh sunshine all had distinct audio. The weather became audible beyond visual effects. Sound made weather feel omnipresent. Terrain sound effects were more subtle than weather. The audio cues indicated active terrain without overwhelming. Musical undertones shifted based on terrain type. Sound reinforced field effects constantly. Entry hazard sounds occurred during switching. Stealth rock damage, spikes activation, and toxic spikes poisoning all had audio cues. The sounds warned of hazard presence. Audio made invisible hazards tangible. Screen sound effects indicated protective barriers. Light screen and reflect created distinct protective noises. The sounds conveyed defensive presence to both players. Audio made intangible shields feel real. Substitute creation sound matched the decoy's appearance. The fake Pokémon popping into existence had satisfying audio. Hitting substitutes produced different impact sounds than real Pokémon. Audio differentiated targets. Protect and detect success sounds conveyed perfect defense. The shielding noise meant avoiding all damage. Consecutive failures had different sounds, indicating decreased reliability. Audio taught move mechanics through repetition. Switching Pokémon sounds accompanied every substitution. The recall and release noises became deeply familiar. These sounds played hundreds of times per playthrough. Their association with tactical decisions ran deep. Knockout sounds signaled defeated Pokémon. The fainting noise carried weight of failure or success depending on which Pokémon fell. The sound marked crucial battle moments. Audio made victories and defeats impactful. Escape sounds during wild encounters meant avoiding battle. Successfully fleeing produced relieved audio. Failed escapes had frustrated sounds. The difference communicated outcome clearly. Capture success sounds celebrated caught Pokémon. The ball clicking shut with satisfaction confirmed the catch. This sound represented achieving collection goals. Audio made completion feel rewarding. Capture failure sounds conveyed escaped Pokémon. The ball breaking open with disappointment meant trying again. The sound marked wasted resources and effort. Audio made failure sting slightly. Item usage sounds confirmed consumable activation. Potions, revives, and status healers all had distinct audio. The sounds made item effects feel real. Audio connected menu actions to battle consequences. Held item activation sounds occurred during automatic triggers. Berries, focus sash, and other items had subtle audio cues. Noticing these sounds helped track item consumption. Audio provided information during complex turns. Ability activation sounds varied based on ability type. Weather abilities, stat boosting abilities, and damage abilities all had unique audio. The sounds made passive effects noticeable. Audio brought abilities to life. Stat change sounds indicated boosts and drops clearly. Rising tones meant improvements, while falling tones meant reductions. The number of tone changes indicated magnitude. Audio made invisible stats tangible. Mega evolution sounds were dramatic and powerful. The transformation sequence received elaborate audio treatment. The sounds emphasized the temporary power increase. Audio made Mega Evolution feel spectacular. Z-Move activation sounds built enormous anticipation. The extended charge-up sequence used escalating audio. The final attack release was explosive. Audio matched visual spectacle with sonic intensity. Dynamax transformation, sounds conveyed massive size increase. The growing audio made the change feel enormous. Gigantamax had slightly different sounds than regular Dynamax. Audio differentiated forms subtly. Regional differences in sound design created subtle variations between versions. Japanese versions sometimes had different audio mixing. Localized versions occasionally adjusted sound effects. These changes went mostly unnoticed. Headphone versus speaker playback revealed different audio details. Some sounds designed for speakers lost impact through headphones. Others benefited from direct audio delivery. The mixing accommodated multiple listening methods. Volume balance between music, effects, and cries could be adjusted in later games. This customization let players emphasize preferred audio elements. Some wanted loud music, while others prioritized effects. Options acknowledged different preferences. Stereo sound design placed audio in spatial positions. Pokémon cries came from appropriate screen sides. Environmental effects created sense of place. The positioning added subtle immersion. Audio compression varied between handheld and console releases. Limited storage on cartridges required compressed audio. Console versions sometimes featured higher quality sound files. Technical constraints shaped audio quality. The sound design philosophy evolved across generations. Early games used simple, clear sounds due to limitations. Later games added complexity and layering. The evolution showed improving technology and ambition. Audio callbacks to previous generations created nostalgic connections. Hearing familiar sounds in new contexts triggered memories. These deliberate references rewarded longtime fans. Sound design honored franchise history. Unused sound files and game data revealed cut content. Cries for removed Pokémon existed in code. Alternative music tracks that never played remained discoverable. Audio files documented development changes. Sound test features in some games let players browse audio libraries. These bonus modes celebrated the soundtrack. Fans used them to re-experience favorite themes. The inclusion showed pride in audio work. Remixed classic themes and remakes balanced nostalgia with modernization. Faithful recreations pleased purists, while updated arrangements showed progress. The remixing demonstrated respect for originals. Audio redesigns had to satisfy existing fans. Live orchestral performances of Pokémon music elevated compositions beyond games. Concert arrangements revealed complexity in simple-seeming melodies. The music gained legitimacy through classical treatment. Live performances honored the compositions. Fan-created music arrangements proliferated online communities. Covers, remixes, and reinterpretations spread widely. The music transcended its original context. Sound became part of broader culture. Musical leitmotifs connected themes across different contexts. Character themes appeared in multiple variations. Location themes evolved as stories progressed. The compositional unity created cohesive soundscapes. Silence, as a compositional choice, created powerful moments. Certain dramatic scenes muted music deliberately. The absence of sound conveyed gravity. Strategic silence emphasized specific moments. Audio accessibility considerations appeared in recent titles. Visual cues duplicated audio information for hearing-impaired players. The inclusive design made games more accessible. Sound wasn't required for complete experience. Rhythm-based gameplay segments required precise audio timing. These minigames tested musical coordination. Success depended on audio cue recognition. Sound became interactive rather than passive. Voice acting appeared sparingly across the franchise. Most dialogue remained text-based. When voices appeared, they carried significant impact. The rarity made voice acting feel special. Pokémon anime voices never appeared in games except for Pikachu. This separation maintained distinct identities between media. Game cries remained electronic, while anime had voice actors. The difference preserved game tradition. Audio modding communities created custom sound packs. Fan-made cries and music replaced official audio. These modifications showed creative engagement. Sound became customizable by dedicated fans. Sound design careers within Game Freak required specialized skills. Composers and sound engineers shaped franchise identity. Their work became as iconic as visual designs. Audio professionals received growing recognition. The emotional impact of Pokémon audio exceeded its technical complexity. Simple melodies carried profound nostalgia. Basic sound effects triggered powerful memories. Audio connected directly to player emotions. Generational changes in audio technology told the franchise's history. From Game Boy beeps to orchestral recordings, evolution was audible. Each generation's sound reflected its era's capabilities. Audio documented technological progress. Music theory analysis revealed sophisticated composition techniques. Complex chord progressions and modal scales appeared throughout. The music was more intricate than casual listening suggested. Professional musicians appreciated the craftsmanship. Cultural influences shaped musical choices across regions. Japanese instruments and scales influenced original compositions. Localization sometimes adjusted music for different audiences. Audio carried cultural fingerprints. The relationship between audio and memory proved scientifically interesting. Pokémon music triggered vivid recollections decades later. The strong association demonstrated sound's memory encoding power. Audio became time machines. Sound design contributed to game pacing and rhythm. Battle music tempo affected perceived speed. Exploration themes influenced movement pace. Audio subtly guided player behavior and mood. The audio signature of Pokémon became brand identity. Specific sounds were legally protected intellectual property. The franchise was audibly recognizable. Sound became as important as visual branding. Audio nostalgia drove continued engagement with older titles. Players returned partly to experience familiar sounds. The comfort of known audio drew people back. Sound anchored emotional connections to games. New players experienced classic sounds without historical context. Fresh ears heard differently than nostalgic ones. The audio worked independently of personal history. Sound communicated effectively, regardless of familiarity. Audio preservation efforts archived game soundtracks professionally. High-quality recordings prevented loss of original audio. The preservation recognized cultural significance. Sound deserved protection and documentation. Sound design influenced player behavior in measurable ways. Specific audio cues triggered predictable responses. The conditioning happened unconsciously through repetition. Audio shaped gameplay experience fundamentally. The silence after turning off a Pokémon game felt noticeable. Hours of constant audio made its absence stark. The quiet marked transition back to reality. Sound's presence was felt through its removal. Audio became part of players' internal soundscapes. People heard Pokémon music in their minds without prompting. The internalization showed how deeply sound penetrated consciousness. Audio lived beyond the games. Competitive players developed audio-based tells for opponent strategies. Specific sound sequences indicated predictable patterns. Top players used audio information unconsciously. Sound became strategic intelligence. Speedrunners used audio cues to optimize routes. Certain sounds indicated frame-perfect timing windows. Audio provided precision feedback for technical play. Sound enabled record-breaking performances. Audio glitches became famous in their own right. Corrupted cries and music distortions gained notoriety. Some glitches were deliberately triggered for entertainment. Sound errors became features in some communities. The relationship between visuals and audio created synesthetic experiences. Colors had associated sounds through repeated pairing. The multisensory integration happened automatically. Audio and visuals merged perceptually. Sound design budgets grew substantially across franchise history. Early games had minimal audio resources. Modern titles allocated significant funding to audio production. The investment reflected audio's recognized importance. Audio awards recognized Pokémon soundtracks professionally. Gaming music categories included franchise compositions. The critical acclaim validated audio quality. Sound received institutional recognition. Educational applications used Pokémon audio for music theory instruction. The accessible complexity made it ideal for teaching. Students analyzed familiar music academically. Sound became educational material. Therapeutic applications of Pokémon music emerged in wellness contexts. Familiar audio provided comfort during stress. The nostalgic quality had calming effects. Sound became therapeutic tool. Audio-only Pokémon content existed through podcasts and radio dramas. The franchise extended into purely sonic media. Stories were told through sound alone. Audio proved sufficient without visuals. The sound design legacy influenced other game franchises. Pokémon's audio approach became industry reference. Developers studied its techniques professionally. Sound design methodology spread beyond franchise. Regional exclusive sounds created minor version differences. Different areas had unique audio elements. These variations added flavor to regional identity. Sound reinforced geographic diversity. Audio data mining revealed developer intentions and changes. Unused sounds showed abandoned features. File names indicated original purposes. Sound data documented design evolution. The consistency of core audio elements across decades created continuity. Certain sounds never changed despite technical improvements. The persistence maintained franchise identity. Sound provided through line across generations. Audio became collectible through official soundtrack releases. Physical and digital albums preserved music outside games. Fans purchased soundtracks for standalone listening. Sound transcended its functional origins. Live audio experiences through concerts and events drew massive crowds. Fans paid to hear game music performed. The demand demonstrated audio's independent value. Sound justified dedicated events. Audio Easter eggs rewarded attentive listeners. Hidden sound sequences appeared in specific contexts. Discovering them felt like finding secrets. Sound contained layers for exploration. The audio community created extensive databases cataloging every sound. Fan-maintained repositories documented complete audio libraries. This preservation ensured nothing was lost. Sound received archival treatment. Audio influenced merchandise design beyond music. Sound chips in toys reproduced game audio. Physical products incorporated sonic elements. Sound extended into material objects. The future of Pokémon audio involved spatial and immersive technologies. Surround sound and binaural audio enhanced experiences. Technical advancement continued audio evolution. Sound development never stopped. Audio accessibility features enabled deaf players to enjoy games fully. Visual representations of sound appeared on screen. Haptic feedback supplemented audio cues. Sound became multimodal. These audio dimensions added depth to understanding the franchise. Sound wasn't just background, but integral design element. Every beep and melody carried intentionality. Audio deserved serious consideration. Artificial intelligence applications began appearing in Pokémon contexts. Machine learning systems could identify Pokémon from images. Neural networks predicted competitive strategies. AI became an analysis tool. Procedural generation never appeared in main series games. Each route and area was carefully handcrafted. The deliberate design contrasted with random generation trends. Manual creation maintained quality control. Speedrunning communities developed incredibly optimized routes. World records required frame-perfect inputs and deep game knowledge. The competitive nature drove continuous improvement. Speed became its own challenge. Tool-assisted speedruns demonstrated theoretical, optimal play. Computer-assisted inputs achieved impossible human performance. These runs showed games' absolute limits. Tools revealed maximum potential. Glitch exploitation created entirely new gameplay categories. Arbitrary code execution enabled beating games in minutes. These technical achievements required programming knowledge. Glitches became features. Randomizer mods shuffled game elements for fresh experiences. Random encounters, items, and trainers created unpredictability. Each playthrough became unique. Randomization extended replay value. Difficulty hacks increased challenge for experienced players. Modified games featured tougher opponents and restricted resources. These community creations served hardcore audiences. Difficulty became customizable. Quality of life hacks improved dated games. Removing unnecessary dialogue, accelerating battles, and updating mechanics modernized classics. These modifications acknowledged design advances. Improvements came from outside. ROM hack communities created entirely new regions. Fan-made games used existing engines for original content. These labors of love showed creative dedication. New games emerged from old foundations. Pokémon cloning glitches existed across multiple generations. These exploits duplicated Pokémon and items. Some players considered them cheating, while others saw them as features. Morality around glitches remained debated. Save file corruption risks made regular backups essential. Cartridge batteries died, erasing years of progress. Cloud saves eventually mitigated this risk. Data loss was genuine fear. Trading scams exploited trust between players. Promised trades weren't fulfilled after receiving Pokémon. The lack of enforcement enabled dishonesty. Trust became necessary currency. Hacked Pokémon flooded online trading. Genid creatures were indistinguishable from legitimate ones. This raised questions about legitimacy and effort. Authenticity became complicated. Pokémon Bank shutdowns threatened collections. Discontinued services risked orphaning transferred Pokémon. The impermanence of digital infrastructure created anxiety. Cloud storage wasn't permanent. Physical event distributions required geographic proximity. Players in remote areas couldn't access exclusive Pokémon. This created inequality within the community. Location determined opportunity. Wonder Trade exploitation saw perfect Pokémon distributed freely. Generous players shared rare creatures randomly. This kindness created positive experiences. Generosity existed alongside selfishness. Masuda method odds improvements across generations showed developer responsiveness. Recognition of shiny hunting led to accommodation. Player behavior influenced design decisions. Engagement shaped games. Bottle cap mechanics acknowledged competitive breeding's tedium. The ability to fix IVs post-capture reduced barrier to entry. Accessibility improvements addressed player feedback. Grinding became optional. Mints allowing nature changes further reduced breeding requirements. Caught Pokémon could be optimized without replacement. This shift prioritized time respect. Convenience overcame tradition. Hyper training enabling perfect stat training revolutionized competitive preparation. The feature made any Pokémon potentially viable. Accessibility reached unprecedented levels. barriers fell. These quality-of-life improvements demonstrated developer awareness. Reducing tedium without removing challenge showed design maturity. The balance between accessibility and depth evolved continuously. Games improved. Pokédex completion rewards varied across generations. Some games offered certificates while others provided gameplay items. The recognition for completing collections showed developer appreciation. Achievement deserved acknowledgement. National Pokédex completion became increasingly challenging. Hundreds of species required extensive trading and transferring. The scope grew with each generation. Completion demanded dedication. Living Pokédex collections maintained one of every species simultaneously. This required extensive box organization and management. Collectors took pride in comprehensive living collections. Organization became art. Form collections extended beyond species to variants. Regional forms, seasonal forms, gender differences, and pattern variations multiplied requirements. Completionists pursued every possible form. Variety created endless goals. Shiny Living Pokédex represented the ultimate collection achievement. Every species in alternate colors required astronomical luck or persistence. Few players ever completed this challenge. The goal seemed impossible. Ribbon collections on individual Pokémon documented their accomplishments. Contest ribbons, battle facility ribbons, and event ribbons accumulated. These decorated Pokémon carried visible history. Ribbons told stories. Origin mark collections showed which games Pokémon came from. Stamps indicated Pokémon's birthplace across generations. Collectors valued specific origin combinations. Provenance mattered. Pokéball aesthetic collecting prioritized catching everything in specific balls. Matching balls to Pokémon's color or theme created visual harmony. This cosmetic consideration added collection dimension. Appearance mattered beyond stats. Hidden ability collection required specific encounter methods. Not every specimen had its hidden ability available. Obtaining complete hidden ability sets took extensive effort. Rarity created value. Event Pokémon collections documented participation in distributions. Time-limited availability made complete event collections nearly impossible. These Pokémon represented specific moments in time. Events became history. Competitive format collections maintained teams for different rule sets. VGC teams differed from singles teams. Multiple formats required multiple team sets. Specialization demanded resources. Breeding project collections preserved perfect specimens for reproduction. 6 IV dittos and species with perfect spreads enabled future projects. These breeding stocks were foundation for team building. Infrastructure mattered. Move tutor collections documented learning exclusive moves. Event-only moves or limited tutor availability created scarcity. Pokémon with rare moves became valuable trading commodities. Knowledge was power. The organization systems for large collections evolved constantly. Box naming conventions, PC organization, and tagging systems all developed. Efficient organization prevented chaos. Systems prevented madness. Third-party tools tracked collection progress externally. Spreadsheets and databases managed information games didn't track. These tools became essential for serious collectors. External resources that supplemented internal. Trading communities facilitated collection completion. Specialized forums and servers connected collectors. Helping others while being helped created reciprocity. Community enabled individuals. Cloning services offered moral gray areas for collectors. Duplicating rare Pokémon preserved originals while enabling trades. Some considered this cheating, while others saw it as practical. Ethics remained personal. Getting debates divided the community sharply. Generated Pokémon identical to legitimate ones raised philosophical questions. If indistinguishable, did origin matter? Perspective varied widely. Legitimate collection pride drove purist communities. Players who obtained everything legally valued their effort. The journey mattered as much as completion. Process justified product. Collection value existed purely in personal satisfaction. No monetary value attached to digital collections. The worth was entirely subjective and emotional. Value was intrinsic. Collection loss through theft, corruption, or service shutdown was devastating. Years of work could vanish instantly. The impermanence created genuine grief. Investment made loss painful. Cloud backup services reduced, but didn't eliminate loss risks. Server shutdowns still threatened stored Pokémon. Digital permanence remained elusive. Security was never guaranteed. Future-proofing collections through regular transfers became essential practice. Moving Pokémon to newest games protected against obsolescence. Forward compatibility preserved collections. Migration protected investment. The time investment for serious collecting was substantial. Hundreds or thousands of hours went into complete collections. This opportunity cost was real. Time was currency. Collection communities celebrated milestones publicly. Completing challenges earned recognition and respect. Shared accomplishment created bonds. Achievement brought belonging. Collection fatigue affected long-term collectors eventually. The endless expansion of collectibles created exhaustion. Some stepped back after generations of dedication. Burnout was real. Collection metrics like first obtained dates and catch locations added sentimental value. Pokémon caught on birthdays or in special places became treasured. Context created meaning. Stories mattered. The social aspect of collecting connected strangers worldwide. Trading partners became friends through repeated interactions. The hobby facilitated relationships. Games connected people. Collecting strategies evolved with game mechanics. Each generation's new features required adapted approaches. Strategies that worked previously became obsolete. Adaptation was constant. Collecting guides and tutorials proliferated across platforms. YouTube videos and written guides shared knowledge. The community documentation exceeded official resources. Players taught players. Collecting meta-knowledge about optimal methods became its own expertise. Knowing the most efficient paths separated casual from serious collectors. Expertise was hierarchical. Mastery had levels. The satisfaction from completing collection goals provided tangible reward. Psychological benefits from achievement were real and measurable. Completion felt genuinely good. Success mattered. Story content varied dramatically in quality across generations. Some narratives featured complex themes while others remained simple. The writing maturity increased generally over time. Stories grew up. Character development ranged from minimal to surprisingly deep. Rivals evolved from one-dimensional jerks to nuanced personalities. Supporting characters gained backstories and motivations. People became real. Villain team motivations progressed from simple greed to philosophical extremism. Team Rocket stole Pokémon while later teams attempted world-ending schemes. The stakes escalated dramatically. Ambitions grew. Legendary Pokémon lore integrated increasingly into main stories. Box legends became central rather than peripheral. Their importance to narrative increased. Mythology mattered more. Post-game stories extended experiences beyond Elite Four completion. Delta Episode, Battle Frontiers, and additional islands provided substantial content. The games continued after credits. Endings weren't final. Side quest complexity increased across generations. Simple fetch quests evolved into branching storylines. Optional content rivaled main story in scope. Side content mattered. NPC dialogue hiding lore rewarded attentive players. Casual conversations contained world-building details. Reading everything revealed deeper narrative layers. Text rewarded attention. Environmental storytelling through building design and item placement added a narrative depth. Abandoned buildings told stories without words. The world itself was narrative. Places spoke. Morally ambiguous situations appeared in later games. Not every choice had clear right answers. This complexity reflected maturing audience. Nuance developed, character ages, and player age targeting shifted subtly. Early games assumed younger players, while later entries addressed aging fan base. The demographic evolved, audience matured. Regional inspirations showed cultural research and respect. Unova's New York, Kalos's France, and Alala's Hawaii reflected real locations. The specificity created authenticity. Research showed cultural representation improved in diversity and accuracy. International regions featured appropriate cultural elements. The globalization was increasingly thoughtful. Respect mattered. Language localization went beyond simple translation. Regional idioms and cultural references were adapted appropriately. Good localization was invisible. Translation was art. Censorship varied between regions, creating version differences. Religious references, violence levels, and cultural sensitivities affected content. Some changes were understandable, while others seemed arbitrary. Standards differed. Story accessibility through difficulty affected narrative comprehension. If games were too hard, players never saw story conclusions. Balance between challenge and accessibility impacted narrative delivery. Difficulty gated story. Cutscene length and frequency became controversial in recent games. Some players wanted story, while others wanted gameplay. The balance proved difficult. Preferences conflicted. Skippable cutscenes addressed different player priorities. Those who wanted story could watch, while others could skip. The option satisfied diverse audiences. Choice helped. Multiple save files enabled experiencing different story choices. Restrictive save systems prevented trying alternatives. Save flexibility affected narrative engagement. Options enhanced experience. New Game Plus features rarely appeared despite fan requests. Replaying with carried over teams could break balance. The feature's absence disappointed some. Replayability suffered. Story integration with battling created ludonarrative harmony. Narratively important battles felt mechanically significant. When story and gameplay aligned, impact multiplied. Unity strengthened both. Pacing issues plagued certain games' narratives. Too much story interrupted gameplay, or insufficient story left players confused. Finding rhythm was challenging. Balance was elusive. Character customization affected narrative immersion variably. Some players connected more with personalized avatars. Others preferred defined protagonists. Preference was personal. Silent protagonists with player-defined responses created different immersion than voiced characters. The approach allowed projection, but limited characterization. Both methods had merits. Neither was superior. Branching dialogue choices were minimal in most games. Responses rarely affected outcomes significantly. This limited role-playing disappointed some. Agency was restricted. Moral choice systems never appeared substantially. Pokémon avoided forcing players into ethical decisions. This maintained accessibility, but limited narrative depth. Safety constrained complexity. The target audience tension between children and adults shaped story choices. Games needed accessibility for kids while satisfying nostalgic adults. This balance was difficult. Demographics conflicted. Story themes of friendship and perseverance remained consistent. Core messages about treating creatures well persisted. This consistency maintained identity. Values stayed constant. Environmental themes became prominent in several generations. Climate change parallels and ecosystem preservation appeared narratively. Real-world issues entered fiction. Relevance increased. Corporate greed and power abuse appeared as villain motivations. These themes resonated with contemporary concerns. Fiction reflected reality. Messages landed. Generational conflict between tradition and progress surfaced in storylines. Respecting past while embracing future created narrative tension. This reflected real societal debates. Stories mirrored life. The chosen one narrative appeared frequently, with legendary Pokémon. Players were special individuals destined for greatness. This empowerment fantasy appealed to target demographics. Specialness felt good. Found family themes through team bonding resonated emotionally. Your Pokémon team became surrogate family. This connection was genuinely meaningful. Bonds were real. Coming-of-age journeys mapped onto player experiences. Growing through adventure paralleled actual maturation. The metaphor worked effectively. Growth happened. Redemption arcs for rivals and villains showed moral complexity. Not everyone stayed evil forever. This nuance taught forgiveness and growth. People changed. Sacrifice themes appeared in legendary Pokémon stories. Characters giving themselves for greater good created emotional moments. These sacrifices impacted players. Loss mattered. The cyclical nature of generational conflicts showed history repeating. Same problems arose differently across games. This meta-narrative connected titles. Patterns emerged. Mystery elements in stories created engagement through speculation. Unexplained phenomena drove player theorizing. The community investigation enhanced experience. Questions engaged. Puzzle-solving integration into narrative progression-gated story advancement. Solving environmental puzzles felt like earning story reveals. Mechanical achievement unlocked narrative. Work rewarded. Backtracking requirements, thus after story revelations encouraged world re-examination. Seeing familiar places differently after plot twists created resonance. Perspective shifts mattered. Understanding evolved. The fourth wall awareness in some dialogue created meta-humor. References to being in a game occasionally appeared. This self-awareness entertained aware players. Winks worked. Story explanations for gameplay mechanics strengthened immersion. Pokémon Center's free healthcare had narrative justification. Mechanical convenience received world-building context. Logic helped. Unanswered questions and ambiguities drove fan theories. Deliberately vague lore elements encouraged community speculation. This engagement extended beyond gameplay. Mystery persisted. Story consistency across media varied widely. Anime, manga, and games told different versions. This created confusion, but also richness. Multiverse explained. Canon debates about which version of events was official. Game Freak rarely clarified contradictions. The ambiguity frustrated but also enabled creativity. Freedom came from uncertainty. Story retcons occasionally contradicted established lore. New games changed, understood history. This disappointed lore-focused fans. Continuity broke sometimes. The expanding universe made coherent storytelling increasingly difficult. Connecting all regions and generations narratively was challenging. The scope exceeded easy coherence. Complexity overwhelmed. Story investment varied dramatically between players. Some played purely for gameplay, while others craved narrative. Both approaches were valid. Priorities differed. The memorable story moments created lasting impressions. Specific scenes were remembered decades later. Emotional impact transcended mechanics. Feelings persisted. Story-driven motivation for collection and completion made goals meaningful. Narrative context transformed grinding into purpose. Story justified work. Meaning motivated. Character popularity often exceeded their story importance. Design appeal sometimes overshadowed narrative role. This showed visual design's power. Looks mattered. Story analysis communities dissected narrative elements academically. Scholarly examination of children's games revealed surprising depth. The analysis legitimized narrative value. Criticism elevated. Story comparisons between generations created quality hierarchies. Fans debated which generation had best plot. These discussions were passionate and endless. Opinions varied wildly. The evolution of storytelling across 2 decades showed medium maturation. From simple adventure to complex narrative, growth was substantial. The franchise learned storytelling. Improvement was real. Story preservation through remakes updated while maintaining core elements. Balancing nostalgia with improvement was delicate. The remakes showed respect for originals. Honor mattered. Future storytelling potential remained vast. New generations could explore uncharted narrative territory. The franchise could continue growing narratively. Possibilities existed. These story dimensions added meaning beyond mechanics. Narrative transformed games into experiences worth remembering. Stories made games matter, meaning transcended fun. Competitive battling developed into professional esports. World championships awarded substantial prizes. The skill ceiling was remarkably high. Competition was serious. Team building for competitive play was complex, strategic exercise. Covering threats, creating synergies, and predicting metagame required expertise. Successful teams resulted from extensive testing. Preparation determined success. EV training and IV breeding were prerequisites for competitive viability. Optimal stat distributions separated winners from losers. The preparation investment was substantial. Work preceded success. Move selection from vast possibilities required deep knowledge. 4 move slots couldn't cover everything. Choices involved difficult trade-offs. Decisions mattered enormously. Ability selection, when multiple were available, affected team strategy. Different abilities enabled different roles. The choice was foundational to function. Flexibility required thought. Item selection optimized specific strategies. Choice items, focus sash, life orb, and leftovers each enabled approaches. Items were 5th move slot, essentially. Equipment mattered critically. Nature selection affected stat distributions significantly. 10% differences determined speed ties and damage ranges. Getting nature wrong crippled Pokémon. Details mattered. Team preview before battles enabled counter strategy. Seeing opponent's team informed lead selection and switching plans. This pre-battle phase was strategically crucial. Knowledge was advantage. Lead selection set battle momentum. Good leads created immediate pressure. Bad leads put players behind early. First turn mattered. Switching prediction created mind game layers. Double switches, safe switches, and prediction switches all existed. Reading opponents was skill testing. Psychology mattered. Damage calculation knowledge enabled confident plays. Knowing guaranteed knockouts versus risky ranges informed decisions. Math determined optimal plays. Numbers mattered. Speed tiers memorization was competitive necessity. Knowing who outsped whom prevented surprises. Speed tie awareness prevented disasters. Knowledge prevented loss. Priority move usage created exceptions to speed order. Mastering priority brackets added strategic depth. Priority outplayed speed sometimes. Rules had exceptions. Weather and terrain control shaped entire metagames. Setting and removing field effects was strategically critical. Environmental control was power. Conditions mattered enormously. Entry hazard usage was foundational to competitive play. Stealth rock appeared in most matches. Hazard stacking and removal defined playstyles. Rocks were everywhere. Screen setting enabled defensive team cores. Light screen and reflect doubled effective bulk. Screens transformed fragile Pokémon into walls. Protection enabled survival. Status spreading disrupted opponent teams. burn, paralysis, and toxic crippled threats. Status application was win condition often, conditions defeated. Prediction accuracy separated good players from great. Reading switches and anticipating moves required experience. Prediction was art and science. Intuition developed. Momentum management through maintaining offensive pressure prevented opponent setup. Never giving free turns denied opportunities. Aggression prevented counterplay. Pressure crushed. Win conditions identifying specific paths to victory-focused strategy. Knowing how your team wins guided decision-making. Strategy needed direction. Plans required. Threat assessment prioritized eliminating dangerous opponents. Removing threats before they activated was crucial. Triage determined survival. Priority saved. Endgame scenarios with limited Pokémon remaining required careful play. Late-game situations demanded precision. Mistakes were unforgivable. Pressure peaked. Luck management through minimizing randomness. Reliance improved consistency. Avoiding accuracy checks and critical hit dependence was wise. Control exceeded chance. Reliability won. Metagame knowledge about common threats and strategies enabled preparation. Knowing what was popular allowed counter team building. Information was power. Knowledge prevented surprise. Tournament preparation involved extensive practice and team testing. Serious competitors invested dozens of hours preparing. Competition demanded dedication. Work preceded glory. Mental stamina during long tournaments affected performance. Maintaining focus across many battles was challenging. Fatigue caused mistakes. Endurance mattered. Adaptation between rounds, when team was known, required flexibility. Adjusting strategy after exposure demanded creativity. Static play lost. Change helped. Scouting opponents' previous matches revealed tendencies. Knowing their teams and patterns created advantages. Information gathering was legitimate. Research helped. The professional scene created celebrity players. Top competitors gained recognition and followings. Success brought fame. Skill earned respect. Streaming and content creation around competitive play built communities. Watching skilled players taught and entertained. Media extended competition. Performance entertained. The gap between casual and competitive play was enormous. Mechanics considered irrelevant casually were crucial competitively. Different games existed in same software. Modes diverged completely. Thanks for drifting through these quiet discoveries. Let the information settle as you rest, becoming part of how you understand the world you've explored for so long.